All right, and we're back to the Lavicast. I'm your host here, Lavia Ray, and I'm here with my two fellow co-hosts, Ian Waffles and Derpda. How you guys doing today?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me back again.
Pretty good.
All right,
Thank you.
Sorry for being gone for so long. We were originally waiting to talk about this. We're talking about this whole arc once it was completed. We weren't expected to go for 9 issues.
Yeah.
About 9 issues. So from now on, we're going to be trying to either waiting for the story to complete or doing it in 4-issue chunks, whichever one comes first. So we don't have to wait an entire year to end up doing any type of commentary about this over again. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right on into this arc. So do you guys remember what the specific name of this arc is again?
No, actually.
Phantom Rider. Is that it? Phantom Rider?
No, it was maybe we'll call it the Phantom.
It's like the Phantom Rider arc. We'll
call it that for right now. So the whole idea about the Phantom Rider arc was now that Clutch is now working hand in hand with Restoration, they're looking to go ahead and try to make this place even bigger and better than possible. So what they decide to do is to run extreme gear race sweepstakes that's meant to just bring everyone together in order to show how grand the Restoration truly is. And in order to do that, so they decided to run this entire race. And if I may be so bold to say, this arc was ass. The core problem with this whole thing is that they tried to do about 20 different arcs, have about 10 different perspectives, 10 different groups on intermingling with each other, and none of them work. And and we're going to get into most of those chunks, as you can tell by the tabs up top. We're going to get into each of those chunks, but I want to focus on start with the place where all these problems end up falling apart and why everything else just does not work in response. Clutch is a shit antagonist because, correct me if I'm wrong, they were trying to go for something of a mob boss idea with them, a bit of an anti-villain, someone who was supposed to come off like they are actually meant to be genuine and sincere and looking to try to work things forward, but are ultimately working behind the scenes to manipulate, control everything going on around them in order to have everything under their control, because he wants to go ahead and be the new Eggman, but instead of being a tech guy, he's meant to be using all the resources to his benefit in order to make himself grander so he can get back to his former days. And he's ass mainly because, one, look at him. Does he look like he's ever been a good guy in his entire life?
No.
And I'm like, yes, I get the idea that you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but you don't get to invoke. But it's kind of hard to invoke that properly when you are introducing your character who's supposed to be coming off like a good guy, looking like a Saturday morning cartoon villain. There's no one who should be looking at this and going, yep, that's totally someone who does not have any malicious intent in his life. But the other problem is not only because we've already seen multiple times of him being a villain up to this point, there is no reason he should have gotten this far. Because literally half of the cast at this point has interacted with him and seen like, oh yeah, he was running a chow racing ring. Oh hey, he was being really shady about stealing a bunch of Eggman tech. He's clearly meant to be a villain. So why are we still teasing this around like he's not supposed to be, other than just for some reason keep the idea up that Amy and everyone at Chaotix have never spoken to anyone in the Restoration, even though they're supposed to be friends? What did you guys think of this guy?
Derp, so you're the one here who actually dropped out of the comic. You haven't finished the whole thing. You're just kind of here to kind of vent questions and stuff. So what I wanted to know though, to answer that question for Lav, is from what you saw, was Clutch's character part of the reason maybe you dropped out early? Like, was there anything about him that stood out to you or didn't stand out to you?
I just
he's had a lot for words. He was so good.
I was just so done. I feel like from the get-go I was already like, how is why is Jewel talking to this dude? And again, you just spelled it out, but I guess Amy just never told Jewel, or none of the others told anyone. oh yeah, there was this possum guy, Shadow punched in the face, and he was kind of sus, and he had this
Well,
whole
okay, no.
evil
To really put that in
thing on.
perspective, not only was he running some weird underground chow racing ring and basically keep them in cages and clearly meant to be sus as hell, he actively sicked a giant Eggman bear robot on them. Like, I'm not saying he should have been number one priority. Yeah, I'm not saying he should have been number one priority, but considering the fact that the restoration is kind of be this weird hodgepodge between charity, construction charity, and paramilitary organization, I don't know why he wouldn't be brought up at some point.
So, Amy, what did you get up to last week? Oh, absolutely nothing. No hijinks. No bad
Well,
guy. Just
was-
a 9 to 5.
Was there anything
But
else
yeah,
about
this-
the character that stood out, or would I be good to go, Derp?
Like, I guess you could start with his scheme.
Would you say it didn't really stand out to you in one way or the other?
No, I was just baffled he got here, and I'm baffled why he's not already been sussed out, and then as the issues went on, because for transparency reasons, I got to like issue 72, and I just dropped out.
And so you would say
tried.
part of that was just
I
kind of like
earnestly
not
tried.
feeling the villain
Like,
as like a
I
threat.
sincerely, genuinely tried. I've pushed through a lot of this comic. Like you can listen to like the earlier discussions. Like try as I might, as much as I do not resonate with a lot of it, I am passionate about the Sonic IP, and I do want to stick with it. But man, the comics and this, I feel like this has been my threshold now for me tapping out. So
Fair, but
I'm here as a normie to kind of react and just learn about stuff that I just did not get to hear, and I hope I'm entertaining here. So I'll let you guys take the wheel.
Yeah, no
Okay,
problem.
so-
Well, yeah. So should I go live?
let me follow up something real quick. So that's
for it.
just the general like what I was talking about before was like just the general issues with this character. But to get more specific, the whole reason that he's the reason why he is the linchpin for why everything else in this arc fails is for one simple reason. He's trying to be a villain at a point where he's trying to really start becoming a villain at a point when he really should just be trying to keep his nose clean. Because at this stage, he's supposed to be someone who's like trying to build, like he's getting there. He's getting to be more and more established. But this should be the point where he's starting to getting to the point of like getting on good graces with as many people as possible. So I don't get how it benefits him to any degree to start trying to be a villain in this arc. Not only a villain here, especially when it comes to trying to get Sonic, Tails, and Amy thrown out of the race. So, little context. The whole start of the race is supposed to feature not only the Babylon Rogues, you got Surgeon Kin here, the Diamond Cutters as being like weird referees for it, but also Sonic, Tails, and Amy. But in the first issue, Sonic, Tails, and Amy's boards were all sabotaged in some way because Clutch wanted them out of the race, and there was no reason to. And my problem is, there's no reason to get them out of the race if you're looking to try to do such shit. If anything, you'd want them distracted with the race so they don't feel the need to get suspicious and try doing any type of investigation. So I'm like, just off of that alone, he's already having enough problems here. And because they're trying to have him act as a villain during this whole arc for no real benefit, it just ends up making everyone else's plot lines come off even less sensible, especially when we end up getting to Sonic, which we'll cover later. But yeah, Waffles, you were saying?
Yeah, if you want to go back to Clutch real quick. So one of the things with this character that I think really stands out to me is like, obviously you were talking about how shouldn't everyone know he's evil? And it's like, well, there could be some dramatic irony you could play with that, where the idea of like, obviously this character looks very evil to us, but maybe the way the lighting is presented, or the way the panels are presented, or just the way he speaks, or the way he carries himself, could come across in a way where we look at maybe something he's doing for Jewel or doing for these other characters and feeling like, oh, I could see how he could be manipulating these characters. But as we kind of see, this is actually a perfect panel. This is a scene where he's trying to basically be imposing towards Scourge. And the way they do a lot of the art for this character is they never go for any like really dark or like black shading for him, or use kind of like the panel space to make him feel really imposing. So all they do in this scene where he is supposed to basically be Surgeon Kidder kind of threatening him, and he is kind of standing over them being like, no, you do what I tell you to do. I have control over you. And this is supposed to almost like bring some PTSD back to Scourge about being controlled by Starline. You know, she feels like this domineering force. Even if she could do something, she feels this presence that is kind of like overpowering her, and that makes her feel really bad. But you don't get any of that from this image. It's literally just normal shading. He's just standing over her, but he's not standing over her like in a very imposing or over the top way. He's just standing over her, stepping forward, looking at her or whatever. And so the big problem I have for this character is that, one, he's a character who uses a gun. So there's nothing he can really use that for, you know? So threat wise and sort of like what kind of pain he can offer the characters, it's very low. Obviously, the characters aren't going to, you know, punch each other's hearts out or whatever. But when you see like a Shadow show up or a character like that who can throw a punch, that shows the idea of like, oh, a character could be weakened and therefore they wouldn't be able to do much. Clutch can't really do that. He has bullets, he has guns or whatever. So there's not really a threat in terms of force. But he also doesn't carry a threat in terms of his physical presence or his emotional presence. And so therefore, like all the ideas they're going for, this obviously this rat basically that is kind of just kind of living among them and no one's doing anything about, it doesn't come across as compelling because nothing about the way he's presented sells those emotions to you. He just kind of does things, which instead of making it feel like, oh, Clutch has this overwhelming presence that is kind of wrapping everyone involved with him or the context of what he's in, it just kind of feels like he's just chilling. He's just kind of hanging out, doing what he's doing. And the story's just almost like letting him get away without the story actually showing you why you should feel like he is controlling the narrative, through, paneling or shading. And this kind of comes to a head for Jewel, not to go into her character too deeply, but one of the things that he tries to do with Jewel is he just kind of keeps her away from things. But most of the stuff that he says to her isn't like stroking her ego or like kind of confusing her or anything. He's just kind of giving like generally like neutral to bad advice, but just very kind of casually, So it just never comes across as if this character has much like control, which is immediately shown when kind of the climax is about how like his goons kind of turn on him because he is kind of he's a weasel and he doesn't pay very well. Obviously like a bunch of interns just kind of beat him up because at the end of the day, he is kind of weak. And so clearly they kind of understood this by the end, that at the end of the day, the only thing that makes Clutch powerful are his tools or his minions or things. And those kind of break down because he doesn't have any, connections or relationships with them, or he's just a bad boss, right? But they never sell that to you. They never sell this in a way that makes it interesting or compelling. Sometimes it's even used as a joke, like with Rough and Tumble. So he's not threatening in any way, shape, or form. And when he's undermined, it doesn't feel rewarding. So yeah, go ahead.
And here's the problem. You think that they would, like, if they actually did just double down on the idea of like, oh, without all of his stuff underneath him, he's completely weak and completely ineffective, I'd actually be okay with that. But then when we get into the final fight where he's supposed to be going up against like
he's doing pretty well against Sonic.
For some reason, he's able to outrun Sonic and Scourge, and I'm just like, guys, look, it was dumb when they did that in the games where Eggman was able to outrun Sonic. I get it. Was just
hey, this is IDW Sonic. He has trouble with badniks. This is
true. He was.
This makes sense.
Like
this makes sense.
So, but yeah, no. Well, and also that's a perfect example of the paneling not doing a very good job because when they're doing their little clash, it's just it's a wide panel and it's just from the sky and it's just them like little action figure version of them, like little chibi versions because they're so small and they're just going tink 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 tink. But like what he's doing in that scene is very impressive. He is dodging and weaving and blocking Sonic, but they don't show that to you. So even if they wanted to show that Clutch is like cool, like he's a badass, he's literally keeping up with Sonic and fighting and holding him off, the art doesn't sell it. So you're just like, what is happening? None of this feel like, even if you believe he could do it, right, it is not selling you that it's cool that he's doing it. It only is cool in your head because the way it's presented is so weak. So I think that's just a big thing for his character for me. So you go ahead though.
No, that was pretty much it. It really felt like they just kind of made him more threatening during that last fight because they just needed to they just wanted a huge climactic fight, but the series is almost inept of being able to come up with actual characters who are meant to be physically threatening. So they just end up making him more competent, made him more of a competent fighter during this so we could like actually have a fight scene. And
yeah, by the way, I'll also say that his plan to kind of use Eggman tech to, make his own army. Once again, this isn't Clutch's fault. This is just just another example of the world building of IDW Sonic just being trash. Because what does that mean? Like if he gets a bunch of robots, what will that do? Because we already handle Eggman just fine, like his badniks or whatever. Or we just rally the troops, right? So there is nothing about Clutch getting this that makes that any worse. And as the story, we'll get to it later, but the story does actually use one of the only places we would have any emotional connection to, and that's not what his goal is for most of the story.
No, say that. Please say that.
I'll save it, but yeah, just
overall, we'll get to that.
Yeah, overall, final point about Clutch is just simply everything about him they want to present him as both intimidating and pathetic as like a reveal, but he just feels pathetic and or weak the whole time because the art does not sell these things. And what he is trying to do is inherently not interesting. Like you have to believe the lie that there is anything threatening about him getting a hold of Eggman tech or him holding this restoration thing or him, manipulating Jewel when there isn't anything, when he has rough and tumble, a bunch of bears in suits, and then he gets, beat up by interns. So that's clutch.
And to add on to this a little bit, so Derp and I were watching Daredevil, the live action Daredevil series last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in that series, there was another mob boss character like this called, as you might be familiar with, Kingpin. And that motherfucker was someone, and even though they do not establish him to have any kind of powers, both in terms of his physical prowess as well as how he works as a mob boss, is intimidating as hell. Like season 1, he basically had the entire New York City Police Department under his fucking thumb. And it took like a whole thing with like the press and a whole bunch of stuff in order to even just remotely be able to get him down and take him into prison. And then when he comes back season 3, we find out that from within prison, not only was he able to keep his empire, he's able to get the entire FBI department in New York City under his thumb and blackmail them. So they basically were end up turned into his own lapdogs.
Which you hate, but
I do.
I love
but no, I do. I found that like I'm just like, okay, I call several levels of bullshit. But the whole reason I bring that up is because if you're going to go ahead and go with the mob boss who's supposed to be like intimidating factor, that's what you go with. You need to establish not like it's like establishing them as being like a fighter. I would prefer it just so you can make sure like that when they do get into a fight scene with the main character, you can actually go something with it. But you need to, the bare minimum, establish how much of a threat they are with how much political and financial power they have over a bunch of different stuff. And they keep trying to hype Clutch up like, oh yeah, back in my day I had all this shit. And I'm just like, I don't buy it when his only claim to fame is a bunch of random, literally faceless mooks that he barely is able to pay properly, and having to basically scrounge and use a bunch of junk parts from Eggman in order to try to be a threat. I don't take him seriously as a political boss because of like a political mob boss because of that. And again, they have to basically make up a bunch of shit in order for him to be even remotely considered a viable fighter against Sonic. And he's not the only version I bring up with this. Like, not only I would bring up I am spacing on his name right now, but the Silco from Arcane. I'd also especially bring up One Piece that had at least 2, both with Crocodile and Doflamingo. Both of them, in terms of how much power that they had over their entire areas, as well as how competent they were as fighters, helped to sell them as how much of a threat they were especially as mob bosses. Clutch has none of those. Things because not only did they not do a good job of actually establishing how he could work, not only because of what you were talking about, Waffles, when it comes to like making sure that the art at least fucking sold it. They don't do enough in story to actually establish him as being a threat either. It's like, oh, you're using Eggman tech? Who the fuck cares? We walk through this shit on a regular goddamn basis. Can you literally do anything else?
It's funny as well because they'll no matter what they do now, I feel like that he'll always be like his origin will always be that one filler villain that got sidelined by Starline, and his exit was getting decked in the face by Shadow.
Yeah, that's where he should have left off. We did not he's only had. It's like with every IDW character. The longer that they're in this comic, the worse that they turn out. And it honestly would have been better if it was one-off character. Like, I'm dead serious. And he is not even the worst character who gets this treatment in here. Like,
no, you're not wrong.
He's not the worst one.
You're not wrong.
Actually, let's go and with that, like, do you guys have anything else to say about this guy?
No, I'm good. We could go into the disaster duo that he's manipulating, apparently.
Yeah, let's talk about these two. And I'm picking this image for a reason, because I need to establish that because like a lot of people, especially a lot of girls on Twitter, love Scourge because they like the idea of like how edgy and serious and how like how traumatic her backstory is. Like, she's the femme shadow we have at home. And I bring this image up here because this is who Scourge truly is. She is not edgy. She is not a threat. She is pathetic. She does not have it. Because this entire arc, she decides to go and work with the garbage mob boss because she really wants to find her backstory. But when she magically realizes that the mob boss, who is looking to bomb, who is looking to try to destroy a charity and is basically having you lie to come into this place, isn't a good guy and is willing to push back on her when she decides to go like, hey, I got compliments for not being a piece of shit for once. Maybe I should do this too. She ends up immediately falling over like this. And people get mad at me all the time when I bring this up, where I basically more or less predicted that this shit was going to happen back when she initially introduced. That not only was she not going to serve as a good antagonist because Flynn doesn't make not a good antagonist. Not only was she not going to serve as a good rival because Flynn doesn't know how to design good rivals, especially for Sonic. She doesn't really work as a good antagonist on her own because they not only won't give her a proper motivation, just constantly keep yo-yoing back and forth between what her worldview and motivations are supposed to be. Whether she's supposed to be like diet Scourge who just wants everything to suffer, or she just wants or she's supposed to be a ooh baby girl who just wants just positive affection or anything. And we end up spinning, and she just ends up turning into this mess of a character. So over the course of the story, she starts out wanting to work with, ultimately deciding to make a deal with Clutch, where her whole thing is that if she and Kit work with him, he will tell them about their backstories, and everything will go well. All they gotta do is get into the restoration, fuck shit up, so he can end up taking it over properly. However, during the course of the story, as she's participating in the race, she ends up, let's say, doing a good thing. We'll get to that in a little bit. And she ends up getting a bunch of praise and adoration from a bunch of people. And she's like, oh, I'm actually good. Wait, people like me because I'm good? Well, I guess I'll go and do this now. So she comes to Clutch, tells him that they quit. And in the most toothless threat I've ever heard possible, he decides to tell like, I'm the one who made you hero. I can take that just as easily. You do this, or I'll make your life a living hell. And she ends up just throwing a fit, and that's when passes out and cries, and then Kit goes, I have an idea. Which, spoilers, fun fact: whenever Kit has an idea, expect shit to go absolutely horrible, especially for these two. He does not have good. Surge is the shadow we have at home. Kit is the tails that we picked out of the trash can.
Oh yeah, I mean all of his stuff is kind of designed to be like he goes like to 11 in terms of he just picks like the most extreme actions, right? Did you have any more with Surge and Kit?
Oh, were you asking me or Dirk?
You.
Oh, me. So basically, they end up deciding to go through with this plan, a nonsensical plan, as we'll get to once we cover this. Once we get to the character who's involved with it, and that's when they decide to go. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and just fuck all this shit up. We ruined Clutch's plan no matter what. They didn't, and that's when they decide to also try to get into a fight with Sonic and Clutch and a third person, and in order for her. And the thing I find so frustrating about this is that the series does not want to do proper power scaling in the fucking slightest, or if it does, it doesn't understand that if you want to do it properly, you need to show the characters can actually do threats without having to take cheap shots. So she gets one proper shot on all three of these characters in order to say she won, but all she did was just get a lick in and just fuck shit up for really no benefit. Almost passes out and then just goes and then does the "We'll see you next time, Sonic, and I will have my revenge." And I'm just like, why are we here? Why is she here? Because, and I'll pass this off to you guys. The thing I said about this girl is that there are 3 routes you can take with her after this storyline. None of them are good. You can either make her good. You can either have her get over her bullshit and have her join the main cast properly. You can have her fully dedicate to being a villain, or try to make her this weird wild card neutral character who just comes in to fuck shit up. And none of those are good. If you go the good route, you are placing her with a bunch of characters that not only half of them don't like her for good reason. The other half have absolutely zero chemistry with her, and there's nothing to benefit for them, as boring as they are, to benefit to interact with this wannabe punk character. If you take her the evil route, we've already established that she's not a fucking threat and is not a fucking threat to anyone who actually has anything resembling powers, and really should just get walked through by anybody. And I've seen people try to go, well, she could be a threat to other random characters. That's missing the point. The whole point of having villains in story like this is not just so they can go and terrorize random characters on the street. The whole point is that you're supposed to set them up as being antagonists for the main characters, especially the main character who's supposed to be the one on the title. But we've already established that Sonic can already beat her. There's nothing to gain from having them fight over again. Because even if you do establish that she does win, now what? Because of the third problem. Even if you go through the neutral route, that's always going to be shit. Because in order for that neutral route to work, she needs to have a clear principle and ideology that she's supposed to work off of. That's more or less what Shadow's supposed to work. But we've already seen how the series can fuck Shadow up, but from taking him from being like, I am just the I need to make sure I hit my goal no matter what. I'll step through anyone in my process who gets in my way. And we saw how that can easily get fucked up in stuff like issue 19. Scourge doesn't even have that. So this just leaves her being this weird mess of a character who can only come in to fuck shit up. For no benefit other than just to drag a story down. So there's no reason to have a character. So we're ultimately left with a character who not only doesn't serve as a good rival or quote unquote mirror for Sonic, she doesn't really work in any avenue without just basically overhauling her to the point that you're just making a new character. But what did you guys think?
You can go ahead, Derp, if you had anything.
I don't really got much. My only thoughts I kind of just wish they redeemed her just so they could push her off to the side and we can move the fuck on. Because, she's not a good villain. She's really not. She doesn't really do much to contrast Sonic or anything. She's not even compelling as a villain. I just find her sad to look at. Girl, I want you to get help and I just want to move on.
Yeah. Sorry, real quick, Waffles,
no, go for it.
One of the things I always do, and Dirk can contest to this, is that whenever I'm watching some type of media, I'm always thinking, even if it's good, I'm like, what could I do to try to fix this? What could I do? What do I think could be done to try to make this better? Or especially if I think it's really flawed in some way. This is the only series that I ever go, nope, scrap it, don't just move on, don't do this again, move on. There's nothing worth salvaging here. And Surge is easily one of those best examples because there's nothing really to do with this girl other than just go, ooh, isn't she kind of cute? Have a cute design, which, okay. But there's nothing really there to fix. There's nothing there to really to build on or to fix. She's a half thought out attempt of trying to do a femme version of Scourge. And as we've seen, it doesn't work.
Also, Kit is not a character. He's just there to be a sidekick support.
Yeah, no, I didn't. That's explicitly why I didn't mention him. He's not worth the breath. He's not even worth the breath to talk about.
He's an accessory.
Yeah, at that.
Split them up for a bit. I don't know, do something interesting for fuck's sake.
No, we did. No, remember they did during their introductory arc, and all he did was just cuddle up in a ball and cry until he found about Surge, ran after her, and then just stay attached to the hip. He's honestly more pathetic than she is. Saying a lot, but
I got nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with Surge and Kit, I mean, I guess to quickly hit Kit, I think Kit just kind of suffers from the fact that obviously he has a role he's supposed to be playing of just kind of being the one who's kind of aiding and abetting a lot of Surge's bad habits. And you can read into that however much you want in terms of kind of their sibling dynamic and how obviously their programming and such. But I find that leads into kind of one of the biggest things with Surge as a character, which is she has a lot of interesting ideas that you could tackle or could make about her character in terms of if they wanted to focus on something, and the things that obviously a lot of fans of her do seem to pull out of those characters. But that's kind of my problem, is I often feel like in order to like what they're doing with Scourge, you have to pull it out yourself, or you have to kind of like give it the emotional weight that you would already have for those topics that she, you know, likes to explore. Like obviously, again, with the scene with Clutch, where Clutch is kind of like looming over her and like, you know, being like, you're nothing, you know, I can take all this away from you. You know, they explicitly say it. It's like, oh, it's like being back with Starline. It's like, you know, I'll never have control over my life. Obviously, if you connect, then you kind of like see that in Scourge, and you can kind of be like, oh man, like I feel bad for her, right? And then that makes you connected, and you want to see her overcome, or, you know, whatever she's going to do. I look at that scene, and I look at how obviously it's portrayed with Clutch, but then also just my main with, you know, with the art and stuff, and how that's not really selling me on it. But the big thing that is a problem is with Scourge as a character. One of the moments where she feels that, obviously, that joy of kind of getting praise or whatever, you could really dive into that, of like, she was given positive affection in terms of like people were cheering for her. And that made her feel good. And the way they even do that panel, I think, was actually a really good start, which is that they give her this big panel of her being like, oh, they like us, you know? And it's just one of those things where like they make it like a big panel of like just being really genuinely happy. It's a smile, like it's a smile you've never really seen from her. So it would be really cool kind of like see her not even interrogate, but just like not know how to feel about that. But instead of, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but like they kind of meet that kid or whatever who kind of like says, oh, you're really cool or whatever. And then she's just like, you know what, Kit, I don't think we should do this anymore. She kind of immediately comes to a conclusion about what she's doing. And I think like with Scourge, one of her character traits that people really like about her is that she is so conflicted and stuff and always kind of moving from one thing to the other. But I don't really feel like she's conflicted. I feel like she is just constantly shifting roles. It doesn't feel like there's a natural progression from her feeling this sense of emotion and then being like, you know what, I want to give this all up. Whereas instead, I think I had pitched this to you. What if instead she, you know, gets, you know, she meets that kid or whatever. Maybe the kid gives her like, I mean, maybe this happens and I'm forgetting this part, but gives her like a doll. But this next part I know I made up. So it's like, oh, they give her the doll or whatever. It's like, oh, hey, like you're the lady who saved us. Here, I got you a present or whatever. And she's like, huh? And she has like the doll or whatever. And then Kit's kind of like, Scourge. And she's like, I don't know, you know, what I'm feeling right now, but you know, I do know what I am thinking is like, we need to talk to, you know, to Clutch or whatever. Maybe she drops the doll, you know? So it's kind of like this in between of her being like, I don't know if I really want this like shitty little doll gift, but I feel something. I don't know what I'm going to do about it right now, you know? And that gives a sense of like this character's conflicted, or like there's an object that we can use to represent like their innocence or their loss of innocence. They won't take this toy or whatever. Just something like that would like punctuate these mood swings she kind of goes through, because it just kind of feels like at every opportunity she's constantly shifting into a new direction. So like you said in the finale, her kind of thing is like, okay, you know what? We're going to screw over Clutch. And then the way they screw over Clutch is they're just like, hey, Clutch, you're the bad guy. And everyone goes, what? Clutch is the bad guy? And it's like, it doesn't.
Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold up, sorry. I gotta pin this because people keep saying that. They never say Clutch's name. That's the reason why I said they don't get points for ruining his plan. Because they don't say, never say Clutch's name.
Yeah.
They never say, yeah, Clutch is the one who was fucking up the race. No, all they do is just reveal who the Phantom Rider is. Spoilers. Spoilers, by the way. And they just go, how you feel about that, boss? That's
yeah. And so the idea of like, oh, there's like something behind the scenes going on. Right. Yeah, no, you're right. So yeah, it's just like, but even just, you know, regardless of that, the idea of like, again, they're making the shift of like, okay, yeah, like they feel really down, right, in this scene, like this image we have. And it's just like, actually though, you know, screw you, we're gonna actually do our own thing. And then they're like, screw you, Sonic, we're gonna fight you. And then that doesn't go very well. And they go, well, screw you, Sonic, we're leaving. And then as we know in the annual, now they're just kind of hanging out and they're doing superhero stuff. And again, don't really have a good idea about how Scourge feels about these. Instead, it's just she's kind of making these snap decisions. And so it just makes her character just feel just very uneven. And it's just a character I can't get invested in, because at every moment, they're just kind of hitting the climax beats of like, oh, she feels this way. She makes this choice. Now she's feeling down. Now she's on the rise. Now she's getting away. Like there's no in between moment to moment. And this kind of ties into your thing about her kind of being really bad as a punk character, is that a lot of people really like her like punk attitude, but she only really gets the punk attitude for like 2 issues at the start when she's first introduced. Otherwise, it's trauma central, and that's kind of always what her character is. And then when she's fighting Sonic, she's not really in her like sassy mood or whatever, because trauma central. She's like, you know, dying and like overloading and, you know, in those arcs. And then in this arc, she's just kind of just generally, I guess, being snarky, but not really snarky. She's just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kick that guy's butt. So there's really just not much to her that makes her compelling in terms of how she's written. She doesn't have this bite to her that I think a lot of people say about her. And then as far as the, you know, the compelling things that people like about her, it's very underbaked. So I just think at every turn, these characters, not only do I feel like they, like you guys have pointed out, I just kind of want them to like find a conclusion and move on at this point, because they're kind of just, their whole ideas are just kind of spiraling. But if they were going to spiral, I would like you to let me be in, like, feel what they're feeling through the art and the paneling, or just allow me to actually like understand, like see the flow as they go through these big emotions, because otherwise they just feel half-baked. So that's kind of my thing with these two.
Yeah, and I'm gonna to build on a little bit. So first off, about like the spiraling thing, I'm not against that in a vacuum per se when it comes to just like, okay, let's just see how these two end up like going out of control. But I always end up bringing this back to, how does this benefit Sonic? Because at the end of the day, stories like this, unless you are trying to be really esoteric or really like unconventional, you should be doing things for the benefit of the protagonist. You should protagonist or the protagonist or the central group to a certain extent. Not everything has to directly tie to them, but it should always be doing something to help fit their story in some way. I don't really and the thing is like, while it's not a bad thing to do in a vacuum, I'm not entirely sure like how them spiraling is meant to impact or reflect or do anything for Sonic and Co. story when that has.
Well, I'm more tackling it from, if it's going to be here and they're going to not make it about that, they're failing at that too, I would feel, because like, obviously if I was reading this comic and there was just like a side character who was just like nailing it, then cool, I get a cool side character that has a great story, right? But they're not doing that for me either. So they're failing on kind of the grand scale, like you're talking about, but as their own characters, and which seems to be what people praise them for. And I don't really see anyone praising them too much for being like a Sonic, being a contrast to him, but as their own characters, I feel like they're incredibly weak there as well, so that's why I feel like they fail at just kind of at every angle. But yeah.
And I kind of agree, but I also kind of want to build on what you were talking about with like their ending, with the ending and how they end up showing up in the annual. So in the annual, it's for some reason comes out, even though it comes out before issue 75, it's meant to take place afterwards, whatever. The issue ends up having them start with them trying to save somebody, but they do a really bad job at it. They get called out for how bad they were at it. Then we end up coming back to them in their own little bedroom, whatever, bitching about it. And that's when they end up coming to the conclusion that they are going to try to save people solely for the benefit of the. On one hand, they want to try to criticize Sonic for like, how dare he try saving people, carrying them out, carrying out of like burning buildings. Oh, he's only doing that for his ego. I know. Why don't we go around try saving people so we can stroke our own egos? And we have Kit the dumbass over here going, oh, I'll even create tragedies and problems so Surge can actually end up saving them so she can end up feeling better about herself. And I'm just kind of sitting here going like, why the fuck are these two here? Like, what's even like, this is I've never seen a series big brain into the negatives before. Like, I have never seen so like, this is literally being dangerously genre savvy in real time from the writer's perspective. So I have no idea why you'd ever try making characters like this, other than
are you being for real? I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. I'm being dead serious right now. I would pull up that.
Kid and Surge gonna create tragedy.
Yes,
bro. Surge be on the microphone like, yeah, Kid, put the tornado on the tower.
Well, and again, it's just one of those things where it's like we've rushed completely past getting to experience like, how does Surge feel about a pure sense of emotion? We've already moved past that, right? Now we're into the dark territory. So again, you just don't get to feel these beats. We're just moving from one thing to the next. But yeah, I already want that.
No, we don't get to like you're saying, we're not really following what their flow of logic is, other than just like them jumping around from beat to beat, really depending on what's going on in the plot that day. But that's the other thing I wanted to follow up on.
I think the writers must have like a dartboard, and every morning they might just throw something at like a sticky note on that dartboard, and whatever it lands on is just like, okay, they move on from their hero job now.
You're not wrong. Here's what
it might be more so that they have. It might be that there's a million characters continue.
Yeah, no. But when it comes to Surge and Kit, Derp isn't 100% wrong here, because the problem is Flynn and Stanley have very contrasting ideas about how they want to handle these two.
Oh, maybe they have a big bowl with little papers inside, and they pull them out and just read them off like, oh, guess this is the plot we do with Surge.
Pretty much. Like, and I'll come back to that.
There's no planning of
there's not. And when it comes to, but hold on, this is what I was about to say. when it comes to Stanley and Flynn, they have very drastic different ideas about what they want to do with these two. With Stanley, you'll notice in most of the scripts where she's writing these two, she's trying to go the sympathetic baby route while also trying to make them seem like they're supposed to be threats. This is the reason why they end up coming so. This is the reason why they come off so uneven during these stories. But Flynn just wants to dedicate them to being villains. But we've already kind of covered. But Waffles, you basically covered why Stanley's method doesn't work. If they're constantly trying to both be these little punk stars but also trying to be the babies, and we're not getting a proper flow about how we're jumping from one to another other than just the plot said so, it's never going to hit properly. And I kind of covered why Flynn's area doesn't work. We've already established how these two are not threats for Sonic and Tails. Literally, Kit can be beaten if you push a button on his back. They're hilarious. Done. We should not like. They literally should have disappeared.
Actually, fucking hilarious.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And the problem that I have is, and again, when it comes to these two, I don't know. There's nothing not only because there's nothing within them that is capable, that's worth putting effort to fix. There's nothing. You can't really fix them without just addressing the fact that they are garbage characters with nothing substantive about them, and they are just meandering where the plot's going. Like I ended up pointing this out a while ago too, that Scourge, as much as she wants to be this little punk, edgy girl with like sharp teeth and like, yeah, I'll just do whatever I want. She is, and I mean this as disrespectfully as possible, she's the most bottom character in this entire series because she always follows who's ever the loudest voice in the room. She never properly makes her own decisions.
Like, I don't want to be mean to like people in the fan base because if you like something, more power to you, like kudos. But I feel like a lot of people in the like IDW, like the people who follow the comic, must have like this romanticized, very headcanon based perception of these two characters. Like it probably grew the moment like their first debut came, and I feel like a lot of people must just have this such like a strong vision of them, but that vision has kind of muddied what they are. And I kind of want to know, like, okay, if you like take what you think they are and you look at them as how they are in the comic today, like do you really like them, or do you just like this OC like recreation you've created in your own mind, like like
no I, as someone who has spoken with enough IDW fans, I can co-sign and say like, yeah, no, that's exactly
it's like Ruby. It's like you got all these awesome characters, but then you realize, oh no, wait, they're kind of shit. I kind of like the version of them I made up in my head.
Yes, that's basically what happened. Do you guys have anything else to say about these two?
No.
Yeah, I'm good. We should probably move along a little faster too, because we're almost to an hour.
Yeah, let's move over. No, we'll come back to Jewel. Let's talk about the Diamond Cutters real quick. Let's just jump to these four.
Four.
So, for some reason, I'm not entirely sure why, they wanted to try to bring Mimic back into the story. So we end up.
Can I ask a question? Because it's been a while. How did he get out of Tails' like last prison?
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I don't remember. Basically, he got out. I think something associated with the Zombot.
Yeah, that might have been just during the Zombot arc. I would assume it just broke and he got out.
Okay,
and then
my apologies.
Then got broken out again. Then it's just been on the lam.
Yeah, you can tell my enthusiasm to this comic is very low.
Yeah, same. So you know what? We're gonna just start with the bottom and work our way up. So so the whole idea about this story in particular is that we're following multiple perspectives, and from this and with the Diamond Cutters, we kind of jump back and forth between all four of them, but the main players in this group are meant to be Duo, Mimic as Duo, and Lanolin. Lanolin's whole thing is basically since Duo's shown up, she has, at least according to IDW fans, she has been constantly being manipulated by Mimic in order to just turn on and just be against every other character, to just lash out every other character in the story. And when we end up, and she's just been constantly being manipulated, constantly, and that's what's meant to be like make her lash out, like constantly like shoot down at Tangle, constantly go after be the one who ends up kicking out Silver from the group, be the one who ends up just like constantly being vicious and spiteful to literally every other character. And then by the time we get to the end of the story, should I show it? I feel like I should show it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, basically so as the story is progressing and everything's starting to hit the fan, and Duo is even starting to get her to question her connection to Tangle and Whisper. We end up getting the reveal like this, where basically Clutch out of fucking nowhere just calls Mimic on a walkie-talkie, blows his fucking cover, and then they just realize, oh, that's Mimic, and we get this kind of interesting shot of Lanolin and Ultimate just having to process the fact of, oh god, I've been being manipulated and lied to this entire fucking time.
Ha!
I've seen a bunch. Huh? Yeah. And I've seen a bunch of people make fun of this, as they should, but I've seen a bunch of people try to play defense for this character. And as much as we can get into the flow of this, I really just want to focus on Lanolin for this section. Lanolin was introduced all the way back during the Urban Warfare story, and honestly, what I call like Flynn's default go-to for female lead characters, which is just
she was introduced before that as a background of the scene. She got buffed up
as a proper speaking character. We're meant to actually.
But yeah, no, that was her debut. But I will forever find it funny that the fan base loved her design so much that the staff buffed her to a forefront character. Just for her to be
pretty cool for her.
Sidelined in her own arc.
Yeah. But here's the thing: a lot of her fans. No, I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of the fans for the series are trying to play defense for her, where it's like, oh, you guys are only going after her because she's a girl, or oh, other characters have gotten ripped into more. Why are we going after Lanolin so much?
Glances over to Sally.
First off, yes, but honestly, unlike Sally, who even as someone who's very neutral on her, I thought she got way too much fucking hate. Lanolin, I haven't seen any like calling her a whore like Sally was, so I also don't think it was anywhere near as bad. Lanolin deserves a lot more than Sally does, because for Sally, for all of her problems, most of it just boiled down to her just being fucking boring and being too much dedicated to being the right character. That being too much just the dedicated, correct perspective too much of the time. But that's a whole different conversation. With Lanolin, her problem is that she's constantly wrong on everything, cartoonishly so. Even when the race ends up getting attacked by the Phantom Rider, her whole thing is to send a bunch of the security guards to try to get him, but she ends up sending them onto a glass tube to try to get him, and they end up cracking the damn thing and falling out under it herself. And that's constantly the whole thing in her entire series, that she cannot make one good call this entire time. Like, it was already a stupid idea to have us not only already know that Mimic is Duo from the start, but it's even more infuriating when we constantly know this information and we're constantly seeing Lanolin go through this entire story, not only in terms of her connection and constantly make the wrong decision, not only in stuff in terms of being associated with Duo, but just in general stuff, like constantly lashing out Sonic, Tails, and Amy, constantly really getting into like trying to chastise and get after Tangle, a character I don't even give a shit about.
They gotta respect her authority.
Yeah, and that ends up getting to the question of what, after we've gotten this whole reveal, what am I supposed to like about this girl? What are we supposed to take away from this character that was meant to make them likable? Because she's not the first character in the series to ever get manipulated. We've seen Knuckles, Shadow, Silver all get manipulated in some way. And to be fair, they all got jokes about that to a certain extent, especially Knuckles and Silver. But unlike those three, who at least got some amount of fun or funny character beats in order to get endeared to them, Lanolin has got nothing but she just needs to be rude and disrespectful to everyone around her and constantly just never can make the right decision. So the better question is, what is there to really like about it other than just going, hey, the IDW cast bumped up this character from background to main characters because we said so, because there's nothing else about her.
Well, Lavi, you pose a good question. So audience, IDW fans, if you love this character, I beg of you, please put your sincere thoughts down below.
And so, hold up, little side note. First off, if you are an IDW fan listening to this, thank you for listening and participating, and I welcome you into the comments. But the thing that, please save the sexist comments, because this is not about her gender. Like, if she was a man or a woman, this would still be a problem. But
wait, it isn't?
Huh?
I'm joking.
Oh no, I didn't even hear you. Don't worry about it.
Also, I guess if you want the biggest example, Lavinai's least favorite character in this comic is Sonic, and I think he is still like a billion jillion times worse of a person than Lanolin.
Yes.
This isn't even like a competition of like, wow, Lanolin's one of the worst IDW characters. Like, I really don't think that's even
hydrogen bomb versus coughing bee.
Yeah, like I don't even I'll go into it now. So I don't even dislike Lanolin. The thing that is a lot of people need to understand in these conversations is a lot of people like to jump to the defense of like, it makes sense, right? When you have a character that you connect to, obviously if you already like the character, then the story is one, right? That's what they want you to do. When people are mocking Lanolin or like saying she's annoying or all those things, obviously it comes from the place of like Lav talked about her general demeanor can be very like negative and rude. And that is not something that just in terms of like, it's like, oh wow, she's being rude. She's a girl with sass, right? In universe, the characters of Tangle and especially Tangle, this character who is very lovable and in universe everyone really likes. She is even calling out like, Lanolin, what the heck are you on about? Like, those are our friends. You're being mean to our friends. You are actually, let's remove being mean. They almost crashed and like got really hurt, and you're being very very negligible to them and very insincere and like calling them out and saying they're a problem. And obviously, and like, so in universe, the characters are pointing this out as like a negative trait. And the comic, wraps around to that at the end whenever she says she's, made mistakes and she's, overthinking things or whatever. But the main problem with Lanolin is she's not a character. Like her, one of the big things we talked about in her introductory arc is, like Derp said, she gets sidelined. She comes into the arc and she just kind of wants to do, she wants to do good because she saw Sonic and she wants to kind of be a leader of her own. And then she's like, I suck as a leader. And then, Tangle and Whisper kind of adopt her in the Diamond Cutters and they say, hey, well, you know what? You could do better next time, right? But none of that is tied to like an emotional core for the character. I don't know why I should specifically care that Lanolin wants to be a better leader. She is just kind of here, They don't present her as like this underdog. They don't present it as if she, has this baggage or whatever that she's working through. So when she's going through this drama, she doesn't bring any value to me as a reader, because all I have is just Lanolin is just acting this way. This is just who she is going to be. She is going to be tricked by the narrative. And since I don't care about her as a character, that is annoying, because I'm not mad at Lanolin. I think a lot of people aren't getting mad at her because like they think like she's a shit person or like she's like evil or whatever. They don't like her because they see her as a plot device and they think she's an annoying plot device, right? Yeah. So like a lot of and I think that's where people are getting their wires crossed when they're arguing or talking past each other, is that yes, it makes perfect sense that she has been manipulated the way she is. Like, let's remove any of her responses. It makes sense that she has been tricked in a lot of these senses, or in a lot of these ways. The only one that doesn't really make any sense is like her not trusting them about like Mimic or whatever, and just kind of going along with him. And even then, you could, again, her character seems to be that she's just trying to look out for that guy. But the reason that doesn't work is I don't know anything about Lanolin, of like her internal monologue of like, well, you know what? When I joined the Restoration, I was treated this way and I was looked down upon, and or whatever. So I'm going to look out for this guy. No, she just does it. And since that's not compelling as a character, she's just doing it. The only thing people can justify for her is, well, that kind of makes sense. It's like, okay, that's cool that it makes sense. It's not engaging. It's not interesting. Okay. And so like, it's like there's no story for her. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so first off, I actually would make a fair case that most of the decisions that she makes are wrong, and don't even the stuff around Mimic, but that's a different conversation.
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about her decisions. I'm just talking about her feeling like she was tricked, or like she's been like she doesn't have all the information, because she doesn't. But she is making poor decisions, in response to that, obviously. But yeah.
But to build on that, even if we go to that point, my problem is like they try to make it seem like, oh, she's learned the error of her ways, she's gotten all this kind of stuff. She learned anything. I even saw someone trying to make a case that like, oh no, she ended up falling for this because she feels like she has to defend for the week after all the stuff that happened with the metal virus stuff, and
which we don't know, which is made up.
Which is made up. But like, let's go with that. Now what? Because the problem is you can't just have your entire character based around only their negative traits. You got to give me a reason to actually give a shit about this character beyond that. beyond just them going through a character arc, because just saying they went through a character arc doesn't mean I need to like or tolerate them. And now that we've got,
you also have to make it like you have to give a reason it's enjoyable or compelling, because any character could just change and you could say, oh, that character had a character arc, right? It's like it has to be, you have to explain why it's enjoyable. But there is no character arc. There is no story for her.
No, exactly. No, I completely agree with you on that. But my whole thing is like, there's nothing left. There's nothing beyond. Like, all we've gotten to see from her is that she is constantly just being disrespectful, dismissive, absolutely unwilling to work with anyone else. Like, okay, congratulations, she's understood that she's wrong and she's not trying to double down on trying to defend Duo after revealing that it's not that Duo was Mimic. Okay, why does she need?
Yeah, it's like now we've reached the bare minimum, which is like, oh, okay, so going forward, you won't be annoying to me anymore. Great, now you'll.
But now, what will you be? Because that's all you were being through all this stuff. And most of that wasn't about Duo. So I'm like, why? Like, that's the thing I find so fascinating about the series overall is how weirdly self-destructive it is. Because I'm not against it in principle, taking someone from the background, taking like a background character and incidental character and moving them forward if you have an idea for them. But the idea seems to be that they were just trying to make this weird, almost cynical attempt at a girl boss. Like, I saw a cynical attempt at a girl boss, and I mean that like they were trying to actually sincerely just make like a female character who actually is just meant to be like task oriented, straight to the point, want to try to take stuff done. But they frame it in the worst way possible, even outside, with or without Duo. It doesn't make her come off compelling or endearing. So other than just going, oh, I like having this character around because she's mean and disrespectful, which I have gotten those defenses. I've seen those defenses for. There's no reason to like this girl.
Yeah, outside of, obviously, which is the reason for many of these characters, the design is very good.
Yeah.
You know what? No, I'm willing to give that. I'm willing to give it a pass for Surge. I still would say no, but fine. I kind of got to push back on Lanolin for her. Like, okay, yeah, she has big tits. Okay. Is she supposed to be a sheep or a cat?
I think what makes her stand out is her.
Hold on. Is she a sheep or a cow?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is she a sheep or a cow?
I don't. She's a sheep, as far as I know.
Why does she have horns?
I don't know.
What's that?
One or the other.
Why does she have horns?
I have no idea. She's a goat. I don't know. But yeah, no. I mean, regardless of whatever she is, the reason I say she has a pretty good design is I just think her silhouette is actually, like, obviously it stands out from any of the Sonic characters. And she just has like a I remember when I first saw her and she has kind of like her, like, I don't really care for her this design here. I think it's pretty lame, but like her having kind of like the buckle up pants and like just kind of like her cargo outfit. Like, I think that looks pretty cool. And she also has like the bell, and that's kind of neat. So I just think like her design is good, but I just think like in terms of how they use that design, they just never put a character. Yeah, I really like this design. Like, you got the black and all that stuff. I kind of like the bell just kind of like covering her mouth and stuff. But regardless, her character just doesn't really get to lean into these things. And so that's kind of what made her climax so funny, was that her kind of character arc by the end is she's like, you know what? I've made some mistakes. And then they're kind of like, yeah, we've made some mistakes too. We'll try to work on it. And it's like, wow, what a flaccid end to this really lame story. So
did she not apologize? Has she apologized to Silver yet?
No,
but he's not around,
awesome.
so I'm sure we'll get to it.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. The fewer characters who are in this story, the better, genuinely, sincerely. But here's the thing. Here's a weird take. I actually do find her to really more or less suffer the same problems that Surge does, whereas like they clearly wanted to introduce another character who's meant to be like a different take on how you view like a certain character role. Like, you have Surge trying to be this weird antagonist, while you've got Lanolin trying to be a weird kind of good aligned character. But
I feel like you're reading too much into this. You really have that much faith?
Oh, no. Sorry, let me rephrase. Basically, my point is, ultimately they tried introducing new characters, but they both kind of end up ultimately have the same problem of they had more or less one associated story arc associated with them. It does nothing but hinder them and make them look worse or function worse in the story. And once they get past that, there's nothing for them to do. Like, I even saw some people try to go with the idea of like, oh no, she's actually meant to be a bad guy, or she's going to turn on them. And I'm just kind of going like, if she turns into a villain, so what? She's not a physical threat. All she has is this goddamn bell. No one's gonna, like, most of the characters should not have an issue being able to deal with her. She's not she doesn't serve as a good thematic contrast to anyone else here, unless you're going to point out the fact that everyone's been acting like a fucking idiot, but she has no ground to stand on that because she's been a fucking idiot.
Well, and again, that was actually my theory, was that she was going to be a bad guy, because I thought, oh, then we can finally we can actually have this, like, move her into a role, because the whole idea is, like, a lot of these characters, like the way Tangle and Whisper talk about Lanolin, there's like a scene where they're like, I think Lanolin's a little, like, unhinged, like, we can't tell her that, like, legitimately they, like, sit together and are like, I think Lanolin, like, will freak out if we tell her that, like, this or that, right? So, like, they genuinely think, like, Lanolin is, like, not all there. Like, they like, in, you know, in the end, obviously they apologize for keeping secrets and stuff, but, like, the story really does frame it like she is really mad and she's really, like, taking it in charge and stuff. And so I was like, oh, maybe what they're doing, like, that will justify all this, because again, it's just a lot. It's a lot they're digging into this character in terms of not digging into her, but just, like, portraying her as, like, this in this negative light, like, in universe, like, not even, like, fandom reaction, just in universe. People are not trusting her and are like, you're going way too far. You are being way too aggressive. So I was like, oh, maybe they're going to put her into a new role. Like, regardless of if you think it's a good role or it has any value, I was like, oh, maybe that's what this is all leading to. But that's why it feels so, like, just weird that it's like, oh yeah, in the end, it's just the derp face. It's that face of just like, oh, I was wrong. Huh.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh,
yeah,
I guess that's it.
Yeah, like, that's why I thought they were going to save the duo reveal for, like, the next arc or something, because okay, we got this revealed now, we got him, we're going to save that later, where she, after this whole arc, since everyone's being a fucking dumbass, caused all this destruction and stuff, she was going to end up going like, no, I don't want to work with you guys anymore, you're all too reckless and stuff. She tries to get sanctimonious and brings Duo along for the ride, and Duo just keeps hyping her up more and more, and that's when we get into the finale of, like, oh, where finally it's revealed, and then she also reveals, oh, I've been an idiot too. I still think that would be a stupid story, but it's like, hey, it's at least giving her something to do.
It's at least putting her in a unique position, because now when you take a step back, right, you go, oh, so where Lanolin ended up at the end of her first arc and now this arc in Misadventures is she learned to, like, to communicate more. Good for her, which doesn't mean anything to me because she's not a character. She doesn't have to, that doesn't mean anything, because there's no reason to be like, oh man, I want to see Lanolin communicate better, because she's not a character. She doesn't have a story. So yeah, I mean, it just all spirals on itself. I don't think we need to talk about Tangle and Whisper. We've talked about their problems a million times. We can probably skip them.
No, they're barely factors in this. I think covering Lanolin was actually more important. Like, hell, Mimic, we already covered how stupid this was in the first place, so we don't need to cover this more. It was really just about talking about Lanolin in particular.
Can I ask a question though about the context of this page? So, like, I'm presuming the guy called him Mimic is the possum, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, is there any of the heroes affecting that? Like, did Sonic?
Oh yeah, no. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking about this while I was reading this. There is no reason for Clutch to be calling him to do this right now.
Yeah, because I'm sat here like, is this like a Coco situation where someone does something behind the scenes and the villain's like, here's my mastermind scheme, and everyone's like, like he accidentally, the trope, the
Mr. Incredible scene where he ends up having the tracker go off at the worst time. There's no reason for this to happen, because during this scene, like, literally on the very next page from this, we end up revealing that Clutch has already had his men tie up all of the random people in there, and they're already moving out. There is no other reason to have this reveal other than to do this reveal. So
they just conveniently did this now. Okay.
Yes.
That's so it's okay. One, it's really fucking funny. I'm not even gonna.
No, it's funny for all the wrong reasons, but
that's it though. It's funny for all the wrong reasons. Like this is not like a narratively satisfying climax or anything. Like, I feel like a good version of this would be the whole, like, all right, guys, we gotta pull the mask under from the face. So we're gonna do the scheme, and then we'll have, like, the possum say his name at this exact moment. They do a few things, boom, revealed.
Here's the thing. Oh, sorry. Continue.
That would be the good version of the scene. This is just, it's comical.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Derp. You're assuming that the characters are thinking intelligently. And they're not. And I mean this, because you know what the easiest way to tell that Duo is fake?
How, Lavi?
Pulling off his fucking gloves. Literally, that's it. Like, Mimic has several easy tells that, according to that. Especially with the logic that we got from the annual with his and Whisper's backstory, Whisper should know. So there's no reason for them to not just walk up to him directly, pull off his gloves, and reveal this. The only reason that he's able to go this long is because even get into this group this deep is because everyone had to become an idiot for him to get this far. And it's even more insufferable that even by the end of this, they spend like Tangle and Whisper spend most of the entire issue chasing after him, only to lose them with him falling into a crowd, and he ends up getting away. So we have to do this shit all over again.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. So here's the fun thing. I think we've covered all of the IDW OCs, and I will continue to refer to them as IDW OCs because they don't deserve it. Because as we have just covered by talking about all of them, they don't deserve it because we need to.
Yeah, we got this forgettable one.
Oh, do we need to talk? No, we do need to talk about her.
She's pretty quick. I could kind of sum her up if you want.
Go for it.
So Jewel's character, just kind of to break it down, obviously she's working with Clutch. Jewel's character has often been about how she doesn't feel like she's qualified for these types of things. So her character seems to be that, Clutch comes in, he kind of gives her some bad advice or just kind of like gives her a, more of a skewed perspective of things. And normally you would think that would lead Jewel to either making decisions that kind of lead to, the restoration not, being able to, do whatever. And so it would be kind of through like manipulation of this character, through like Clutch kind of like leading her down a wrong path of thinking that maybe like, maybe through her insecurity, she kind of decides, oh, maybe I do need to be more strict or I need to do X, Y, Z. But no, the main thing that Jewel does is that Clutch just kind of goes, hey, Jewel, can you like go do some paperwork and have headphones? And he doesn't even do that part. She just has headphones because throughout this entire story, people are trying to they just want to talk to Jewel. That is the idea. We need to talk to Jewel and tell her that things are messed up. And then people won't let them because, the bear guards say no, and we can't, I guess, just beat them up or run past them. Regardless. So there's a scene where like lots of crazy stuff is down. And this right here on screen, Jewel just happens to be in the room doing paperwork and she has headphones in. So she doesn't hear that bad things are happening. And then she walks out, goes into the room and she's like, hey, shenanigans are going down. And Clutch goes, yeah, but like, I'm in charge, lady. And she goes, oh, haha, my bad. And then she decides to help. So this is the first half of her character. So Jewel does not make mistakes or like let Clutch in or whatever through like any character flaw. She just literally flat out doesn't know because like no one has told her before or can get to her, and people can't get to her because she's like wearing headphones or she just won't have a phone.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Does she not have a phone?
I just said that. She doesn't have a phone, I guess. Yeah.
No. She does have a phone. They literally end up establishing at some point that she was looking to try get in contact with Amy, but her phone was off. Like it's literally like.
Yeah. So which none of these things are because of Clutch. It's just bad timing. So one, this has nothing to do with the character, and two, it doesn't make like it has nothing to do with her having flaws or like whatever. And it's not Clutch being really cool because he's manipulating people. But then we get to the second half. So now that we realize that Clutch is a bad guy and we're kind of beating him up or whatever. Jewel's plan is that while Derp, I don't know if you know this. Jewel's plan is that while everybody is on board this giant ship that's in the sky, this is, by the way, to stop Clutch, who's just a guy with a gun. Okay. Her plan is that with everyone trapped on board, she sets the ship to self-destruct.
What?
Okay, I'm gonna give a little context. I'm gonna give a little bit of context. Waffles is basically right. Just a little bit of context. So during the last round of like the race or whatever, Charmy, we'll get to that, ends up coming in and basically puts all of Clutch's business on display, and everyone goes like, oh my god, he is the bad guy? I can't believe that. He gets all mad. Is like, all right, fine, I'm going to go ahead and use this ship for his proper purposes. I think the idea was that he was going to he was going to use the guns on the ship because when you're running a race for charity, you definitely need to have an airship that's completely militarized in order to do that, because that makes sense. So by doing that, I think the whole idea was that he was supposed to be setting it up to try to do that, but then Jewel is the one who gets the brilliant idea to go, ha, I'm gonna beat you to it first. I'm gonna set the place to self-destruct.
I'm gonna kill all of us. Which, by the way, real quick, she does this by overriding his control over the system. So she like overrides it because she's like in charge or whatever. And so you would think it's just like, oh, I overrided you. But no, she overrides so she can self-destruct.
Yeah.
With everybody on board. And by the way, mind you, if it explodes, things will fall on people. So, but anyway.
No. It's not just that the ship is filled with people. The ship is above a giant filled stadium with a bunch of like hundreds of people on it, not to mention all the other racers, and it's above a giant goddamn city filled with millions of people. And it's like, and here's the thing, I need to really establish this.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
She knew that this thing had a self-destruct button because she also knew that this place was also militarized with a bunch of guns and shit. How the fuck did you not realize that he was the bad guy before this?
Oh my god.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say it either. Yeah, you're good. It either means that she installed all these weapons and self-destruct things, or Clutch did it and she just never knew. Which again, okay. So it's like there, but she knew the self-destruct was there, so she had to know it was there. So it's like, where, like it just
that's just. I guess that's just part of every spaceship.
I guess, but it's like I usually don't like to break down like these sort of like logic things, because usually you can break it down by the characters, like their motivations or whatever, or just like, oh, it's a cartoon, so they have like this kind of wacky scenario. But like this is all part of like her character having agency, and the things she decides to do are ridiculous. And I don't think this is meant to be like oh, she was supposed to set it to self-destruct, but then like once Clutch, I guess, left, even though we literally had him, we were going to capture him or whatever. So I guess we were intending to let him get off the boat and then be like, haha, now I won't have it self-destruct. Maybe that was the plan, but I don't think that was the plan because because like, later. Yeah, go ahead.
No, because that wasn't the plan. Because the thing is, the self-destruct button for this place is one of the most esoteric, clearly not written by someone who actually knows how tech works possible. Because instead of just going, oh yeah, we hit the self-destruct button, it's supposed to set off a bunch of like landmines or bombs set up across the entire ship. No. Apparently, the self-destruct button is meant to melt all of the computer systems to make sure that the place catches on fire and then just crashes.
Which is even worse, because that means an even bigger thing is going to fall on the city. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so like all this is happening. And so but like the reason I don't think it was, like you said, it meant to be like the plan of like, oh, I'm gonna undermine it. Like you already pointed out, it's not. But like in universe, later there's a part where not to get too much into the ending, but they have to make a choice between where are they gonna drop the ship, because it's gonna fall no matter what. And they decide, instead of putting it in like the ocean or the forest, they decide, we're going to aim it at the Restoration, which is full of people. And Amy goes, Jewel, the Restoration is full of people. She goes, Jewel, the Restoration is full of people. And she goes, yeah, but it's less people. And she looks really upset about it. So like Jewel's like way of thinking is that if something goes wrong, we'd die right now. And it is absolutely absurd. And again, the end of her story is just that she's just weeping and crying. And she's like, oh my gosh, I almost killed all these people. And it's like, yeah, Jewel, you really shouldn't be in charge.
Like that,
I feel bad for like any fans of these characters, man. It's like the writers are trying to just bully them in a way.
No, that's exactly what I was about to say. This is what I mean by the series is almost self-destructive, like is weirdly self-destructive. Like it had to go through with the self-destruct plan, which is still stupid for a bunch of different reasons. The city is not some landlocked location. It's meant to be next to the ocean. Why not drive the boat into the fucking ocean? But no, it really feels like they did this whole plan because they just want to do, like you were trying to imply earlier, Waffles, that they wanted to have this whole arc, this story be about how Jewel is supposed to understand that the Restoration isn't about trying to get bigger or trying to get better, all this kind of stuff. It's meant to be about the people, which is the dumbest way to try to have. Like, first off, I didn't even want to I'm going to be honest. I don't really want to count this as an arc in the first place because, one, there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting to try to make sure that the group that you're working for is trying to grow and become as more effective and efficient as possible. But more specifically, there's no reason that you have to go about it this
cataclysmically
in order to try to make the point that it's not about how big it is, it's about the people, which doesn't make sense.
Again, that's why Jewel fails so much as a character, is that she is not making mistakes because like a character flaw or like her not understanding what the restoration is. It is literally that she just bought really big headphones. like that's how that's why it doesn't work, because it's, I mean, obviously it doesn't work because it's way too big, but I mean, it's just like the message they go for at the end of like, no, but Jewel, you see, it's this. It's not a message for her character to learn. It's literally, oh, Jewel, you thought you almost killed everyone? Well, one, you didn't, because Sonic had a brain cell and was like, well, we could just like save people. So he does that, which is good. But two, it's just like, see, the people survived, and that's good. It's like, oh, you know what? You're right. But that doesn't change anything about Jewel as a character. It's just a thing she learns. Like, it's literally presented as like new information. That's it. It does not change her. It does not make her a better character. It does not like complete an arc or whatever. It doesn't complete a story. It's just, well, Jewel, you just thought about it wrong. Like the place is the people. And she's like, man, I'm really sad and depressed. And that's it. That's it for Jewel. So like, there's no story for it. It's really ridiculous. And like, I agree with Derek. If you like Jewel, I feel so bad for you. She's treated so poorly.
Yes, no, she is. And I'm kind of glad you brought up the whole thing about like, it's not meant to come from like a character flaw or character weakness, or it's about an arc, because that's the case for all of them. Like, as much as I was ripping into Scourge and Lanolin, I don't find them as a quote unquote like bad quote unquote people, because they're not people, they're fictional constructs. But I also don't have a particular problem with how they with them as like how they are functioning as people in the story. My problem is that the writers don't know how to use them properly, don't know how to handle these characters at all, and just have them do stupid shit just to keep the plot moving for a half thought out story that doesn't even make sense in the first fucking place. Like, even it's Jules the big, and is honestly one of the worst offenders to this, because they like, everyone here is like this weird puppet who's just here to push the story forward and nothing else. And Jules the biggest offender, because she ends up getting forced into being the leader of the restoration, not because she wants to, not because she has a skill set, but because they wanted Amy out, and she's the only one that had the only other character in the story at that point that had literally nothing else to do. So they decided to put her into this role. She doesn't have the skill. She clearly doesn't have the skill set for it, and and every time that we end up coming back to her, she's always doing something that ends up making shit worse. So I'm like, and even to the point that, again, we just established that she was looking to blow up a fucking ship where hundreds, if not millions of people, thousands or millions of people could have gotten killed in the process. Like, what were they even trying to cook with this?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it kind of ties into there's a lot of criticism we usually have about Stanley's writing, which is that a lot of her writing seems to come from, it's like a good idea of, like, for example, she talks about the campfire arc. She has like a really, like, the best part of that arc is actually not the story. It's the little blurb she gives at the end where she talks about like, I think an experience she had with like a forest fire, and how like that really like imprinted on her, and she wanted to tell a story about like characters kind of like overcoming and work together to kind of like stop a forest fire, just because she thought that was like something that could feel very real and something she had experience with. And it's like, oh wow, that's really cool. But like the way you told the story, it just kind of jumps to the message without actually giving like an emotional investment to why I should care about that forest fire, or why I should care about the restoration, or why I should care that Jewel learns that, you know what, at the end of the day, it's about the people, you know, the people we love. Those are great messages. But like the stories they always tell with these characters are just kind of like the character is like bulldozed through to get to that message, rather than like actually telling a story, right? About like that character learning those things or experiencing those things. And Jewel's kind of just the perfect example here, where she is just kind of tossed through this arc, makes horrible decisions, and then at the end is given the lesson. But it doesn't help her, because she's not treated as a character. She's treated as if she's like a real person. And you know, it's the thing I always go to, the epitome of like the messages I hate in IDW, or like the way they kind of treat the characters, which is in the campfire arc. Amy says, but you know what you are doing? Your best. And it's like, that doesn't mean anything.
Here, like I could buy this a bit more if like this whole ending about like Jewel learning that the restoration is about the people. If one, she was making any type of decisions where she was prioritizing the aesthetics or just the goal of what the restoration is going for over the people, but that never happened. She's barely a character in this story until literally basically the last two issues. And it's kind of hard to, and also when we get to this point, she has not she's not had a positive or negative interaction with anyone in the restoration. Like, as far as I can tell, the only people she's talked to in this goddamn series are Tangle and Whisper.
Yeah, there's no citizen character to represent the populace. The only characters who are like this are Night the Owl and the Rooster Guy, but they don't represent the restoration. They just represent everyday people. And I like that.
And they're not, and they don't talk to, and they don't interact with Jewel on this front at all. So it's like there's no.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually like them. I actually think they're one of the best parts of the story because they are that character where, like, you know, it's always fun in an arc when it's like a character who is kind of like existing outside of like the main character's bullshit. And they just kind of come in and they just like throughout their own personality or their own little quirks or just things they can provide. They just kind of get to help the hero a little bit. And one of my favorite scenes in the story, at least like setting wise, was just kind of like when Knight just kind of grabs Sonic and pulls him into his little RV and he just kind of hangs out with him for a little bit. Like that's cool. Like I like that character. But
that is like the only that was the only moment in the few issues I read that I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, because it's kind of cute, but then they overdo it because then what they do and because again, this is where they're not earning their moments. They have the moment where he comes in and he gives all this information, and Clutch is saying things like, "Don't you dare say that, you stupid bird!" And then he just turns to Clutch and he says, "I don't work for you." But that doesn't mean anything. Like, it is not as if Clutch has been buying out characters we know or like villains we know or like that's been a story. It's just that he has goons, you know? It's just that he has Rough and Tumble, who literally in the final issue are like, "Well, you can't quit." He's like, "Yeah, you can." And they go, "Oh, well, we quit." That's not a joke. That's literally what they do.
Yeah,
they literally tell Amy, "Well, you can't quit." He goes, "Yeah, you can." They go, "Oh, well, we quit."
The most nothing villains.
Yeah.
Oh, so I know they're going to be the main villains for the next arc.
What?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
I wouldn't make that up if I wanted to.
Please, no. Bring back All Body Cuba, man. At least they were fun. Let them be head honchos for a bit.
There they are. Look at those ski. They're gonna cause some mayhem.
They should be cream villains. Cream should be beating their ass.
Cream villains. They easily should be cream villains. They're not cream villains, but they are meant to be treated like they're actually fucking serious.
Oh my gosh! Wait, guys, are they using one of Clutch's badniks? Oh my gosh! Oh boy!
Is it really so hard? Like, first off, we are literally at a point where like the Zeti are actually more functional antagonists than
I hate that you just said that. So
tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Though. Tell me I'm wrong.
It's so true, and I hate that. I actually hate that. Oh my god, this fucking comic. We're actually giving like positive points to the Zeti, and I hate that so
more like neutral points, but yeah,
I guess like that is
no, but we're still talking about them in a positively in comparison. That should never happen. I should never be able to say, yeah, the Zeti, as cartoonishly wannabe diet Bowser kids that they are better. They are better villains than literally all the other villains that we have in the series.
In the comics, FYI.
In the comics, sorry, I meant IDW, but yeah. So yeah, no, it's like that's not a good thing. But here's the real rub and the genuine and one of the worst things about this. For everything we've just talked about, we've basically covered 90 to 95% of what's going on in this comic and generally the major plot points of everything happening. Did you notice something funny about this whole conversation?
There's a few
sorry,
characters
can I ask a question?
Missed.
Huh?
Can I ask a question, Lavi?
Shoot.
What are we talking about? What's the title of this whole thing called?
Let's see. I think it's called Sonic the Hedgehog. Huh. Why do you ask?
Well, it is the year of Shadow, so you know.
But where was Shadow?
Shadow wasn't in it either. Okay, now ruining my joke. The whole joke is you can talk about like this entire fucking story. You can pretty much not talk about any of the game characters, even though they have multiple of them in here. Especially, I wonder who it's Sonic. It's fucking Sonic. I don't know why they even tried to pretend like this was going to be like some reveal in the slits, but whatever.
Well, so, yeah, I think that was just awkward right on their behalf because Evan Stanley came out like the day later and said like, "Oh, it's not supposed to be a twist. I'm sorry."
Okay, but here's the other problem. Even if it's not a twist, this is still one of the dumber things here. Not only because one, it has nothing. You could literally take this entire beat out and lose nothing. Like just straight up nothing.
It's funny to me. Like Sonic and friends need to get in. Like Sonic needs to make a distraction or whatever, and like Tails and Amy need to get in the ship. Correct.
And instead of just going for like either speeding into the place, flying into the place through a secret door, because those are a thing that wouldn't be a hard thing to just write and go. And then they sneaked in through an opening in the security. Or Sonic could have just been Sonic, been a little shit, taunted the security guards, ran off, and then Tails and Amy run through, like, literally anything else.
That's too cocky and gray, though.
No. It's better for him to be a Diet Common Rider and then go around fucking up the race that his friends have been trying to plan. So
and how he does this is conveniently, Eggman is just around a fucking bar, and he's like, I'm angry at the people that made an advert about me, and they I'm offended, Sonic. So team up with me, genocidal monster, Dr. Eggman.
And I've seen multiple people try to defend this and go like, well, Sonic has worked with Eggman before. I need y'all to understand there were reasons why they were working together before. Usually, if they didn't work together, they were gonna die. Not, oh, hey, this guy's talking shit about me. Let's work together, try to take him down. Not only should there be no reason to do this here, it's even worse to do it here because we're still right off the Melvirus arc where he was looking to basically turn everyone to his own robotic slaves and gave no shits about everything was going for that. There's no reason to trust this fucker. It doesn't make sense. As we end up revealing, there's no reason for Eggman to want to work with Sonic. There's nothing to gain from this. The only reason that he's even doing this is because he's apparently trying to find out who's running Clean Sweep. And I'm like, okay.
Does anything come out of that, by the way?
Yes, we're going to get to that. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But I don't know why that would even be, like, other than just he's trying to keep his nose clean from getting, like, Chaotix or Amy's attention, which, okay. I don't know. Like, there's no reason for him to not just be overt about why his identity as a CEO, because spoiler, CEOs are not really are usually known for companies with CEOs. CEOs are usually known for when their companies go public. There's no reason why this information wouldn't just be readily available. Or for that matter, Eggman couldn't just send a robot to just go send a robot or a drone in to go figure out, okay, here's Clean Sweep. Go find out who the CEO is and running all this shit. And then you're done. So there's no reason for this to be a thing other than they couldn't come up with the reason why Tails wouldn't be the one to design this suit. But let's talk about this. So after they end up getting kicked out of the race because Lanolin's got to be a bitch, they decide that instead of just trying to find a way to contact not only Jewel but Belle directly in some way to try to figure out like what happened, what's going on, instead of just doing that, they decide to do the most convoluted thing possible with Sonic going pretending to be a Kamen Rider, cause a bunch of shit, cause a bunch of problems during the race, and then fuck off. Now, I could maybe defend the first time he did it, but then he did it just so he could get enough time for Tails and Amy to get onto the ship. But then he did it a second time. And I still have no idea why he did that, because they're already on the ship. There's nothing to gain from causing another distraction from them at that point. They are on the ship. They either need to get their shit done, they go around. There's nothing to gain from still like causing more ruckus. But the worst part is during the second time, he gets revealed. Not everyone finds out, but not only does Mimic end up finding out that it's him, Tangle, Whisper, the Babylon Rogues, Surge, and Kid all end up finding out about that he is the one being the Phantom Rider. So you think this would be the time for him to just go, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to do this anymore. But then he decides to do it a third time. And there's literally no benefit for doing this. And the worst part is it's kind of hard to tell how time is progressing, because if you're looking solely from Tails and Amy's perspective, it seems like all of this is happening within like a couple of hours while they're going on the ship. But if you're looking at for how the game is running, it seems like this is going on for at least 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, like
and I'm
days.
Like, how long does it take to try to do this investigation? And it's even weirder when they end up finding Belle relatively quickly. And it's like, why does this take like 2 or 3 days for you guys to get this information, get the fuck out? Or for that matter, why aren't you like communicating or doing anything proper? And I know this is like getting into like quote unquote like a cinema sense tier, but my whole point here is, why are we not having the characters? Because you're just
paying attention.
It's happening for the benefit of the characters.
You're just paying close attention,
huh?
You're just paying attention.
No, well, one that, but I want to make a point real quick. My point is, because it's not like anything here is being done for the benefit of the development of the characters. I would totally, or if it was just cool or funny, I would totally be willing to give it a pass if it was any of those things. But it's not. So I'm just kind of left with going, okay.
Like allegedly the Straw Hats have like 10 seconds to climb the clock tower, and yet it takes like a full episode or like 2 chapters.
Well, okay, no, actually, no. I'm gonna come back around to that. Like, I don't like that they do that, but that's Oda not understanding how time. That's Oda not understanding how to estimate time properly. Which is
well, I just meant it's an example where it's like if you got something good out of it, you would have allowed it. You know?
Oh
it's
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Fine, it's like, fine,
nothing good comes out of this. All they do is like a random trash joke meant to reference to the murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. They find Belle. They end up getting punked by Rough and Tumble, which should never happen. Like, no, which is already a problem. But then we even build on to, but even when we're just focusing on Sonic, there's nothing to gain from this. The first time he ends up causing a bunch of shit, it's not that cool. It just kind of leads to a moment where Surge can, he ends up, it makes it seem like Surge is chasing him off when he's just running off, and Surge gets to pretend like she's a hero for 5 seconds. Then the third time when he ends up showing up, Surge immediately ends up trying to start shit with them, ends up revealing him because the suit is also very fucking easy to just like easy to just unmask and take parts off, which is just like, really? And then this is where we're supposed to get the whole reveal, like, oh, Sonic is the Phantom Rider? What is the thing? And nothing comes from it. The second that he ends up getting revealed, we just get back to the plot. He runs back, he goes back up, and he's the one who ends up dealing with most. He ends up being the one to like first he ends up going after Clutch because apparently he couldn't just do that immediately. And then
I can't believe Sonic caused hijinks.
Yeah.
My hero gone.
Oh, by the way, Derp, remember how you were asking, like, does the Eggman stuff pay off later?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, let's get to that. So once Sonic ends up coming up to fighting Clutch, and he ends up trying to like, drag him down a little bit, then Surge tries to get into the mix, immediately gets punked out. Clutch starts using a remote control that looks like the memory card that comes out of the Dreamcast, because everything has to be a Sega reference. We can't make tech that actually make sense in the universe. Instead of doing all that, he ends up just sending a bunch of missiles, and then hears Eggman's voice go, "Oh, so you're the one doing all this shit?" And goes, "Wait, what?" And then we end up seeing the platform that Sonic is on transform into this.
Why aren't you cheering, Derp?
Yeah. Derp.
Huh.
And I gotta be honest, he's not the worst, the character who's handled the worst here, but it's amazing to me that they can't even get Eggman properly. Like, for all the issues I have with how Eggman is handled, and how I don't like Eggman as a character, the one thing I will give him credit on is that when he fights, he is looking to be on the front lines. He is like, nope, I'm going to be the one to fight. I'm going to be the one to be head first. I'm going to be the one to take these fuckers down. And I'm like, yes, good on you. So why the fuck is he fighting through? Why is he fighting through a screen? And more specifically, if this was the whole plan, why didn't he just run into send a bunch of his robots to Clean Sweeps HQ, just fuck shit up? Because we end up establishing here it's not just because of the insults, it's because he doesn't like the fact that they're fucking with his tech, which makes all the sense in the world. So why do we have to go through this espionage bullshit instead of just take him down directly?
Oh yeah, and then like at the very end, it's like he takes off with Clutch, and it's like, Clutch, no, and then that's it. Which is very funny. It's like, what are you gonna do with him? I don't know. Like it's almost like it almost seems like you're supposed to feel like, oh man, what's gonna happen to Clutch? Like, not like you feel bad for him, but just like, what dastardly deed is Eggman gonna do? And it's just like, okay, bye, Clutch.
Yeah, it's like, why should I feel sorry for this clown? Like, not only because he's been causing all this fucking bullshit in the first place, and not only because he's a fucking villain. It's IDW Eggman. Save for the Zomba bullshit, he hasn't done anything. Why should I feel like he's gonna, like, this isn't SatAM Eggman where I can see him like turning him into SatAM, or even Underground Eggman where I can see him turning him into a robot. This is fucking IDW Eggman. He's not gonna do, like, the worst I can see him doing is just throwing him into a prison and calling it a day and just leaving him there to rot. It's like, okay, it's not great, but I'm like, who the fuck cares? And considering the fact that the series will refuse to come up with a new villain and feels the need to constantly keep these guys in rotation, I have no reason to think that Clutch isn't just immediately going to come back and try to start doing new shit again later.
Yeah. Well, and again, it just It just doesn't feel very like Eggman in the sense of like it's just not just a fun idea of like him, like the way he like the idea of him coming in to kind of like mess with everybody, like that's kind of a fun idea. But usually with Eggman, what makes it fun is that he kind of just goes overboard, you know. But you know, here it's just he has kind of a derpy looking robot, and then he leaves, you know. So it doesn't like just even from like a baseline like Eggman entertainment perspective, you know, it doesn't even get that, you know. It's just kind of like Eggman shows up. He kind of like tanks a hit from Scourge, and he's like, haha, my robot is designed to be fine. And she goes, ah, shit. And then he leaves, and that's it. You know, so having Eggman around, of just like, oh, Eggman's fun. He wasn't very fun.
Derp, any thoughts so far?
No.
There we go. Well,
okay.
Is there anyone left?
No, we still got someone to talk about because, and I actually kind of want to ask you on this because I'm like, is the man, the myth, the legend? Oh, first off, these three deserve better.
Yeah.
They are just like I'm never been like the biggest fan of these three. Like they're fine, they're functional rivals, especially for the racing game. Riders should come back, but as characters in this story arc, they are so fucking wasted. And it's even more baffling to me that these three end up figuring out that Clutch is a bad guy before the Restoration does.
Yeah,
like these three are established, at least the guys anyway, are established to be idiots, and they end up figuring out that the sus situation is probably sus, and then you take this guy down before the actual IDW OCs do. Which I'm like, if you ever lose like being a good guy competition to these two, spoilers by the way, you're already foreshadowing by the way, you're already off to a bad start. So I'm just like, but the thing is, these three are just completely wasted here until basically the last issue. Like they're supposed to be like in this racing and like supposed to be racing, but the story, as you've been able to tell from this conversation, isn't really about the racing in the first place. So
yeah, I want to say, because this has been kind of annoying me actually. Like a lot of people like calling this like, oh my gosh, you guys, Riders is back. This is the best thing in forever. Like, no, it's not. Shut the fuck up. I know you're desperate for more Riders, but like this is not about Riders.
No.
like
Well,
they're
what
not
they
the
do
forefront. It's more about like the stupid mimic and Clutch stuff.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, and what they do with Jet that I think is just kind of really silly is so yeah, for the most part, Jet is just kind of a meme in IDW, which is very fascinating to me. Because in like Riders and stuff, he at least like was self-serious in his own stories. Obviously there was comedy with him. I mean, there's literally like a joke where like I don't know, like his like Storm like leaves the room and then like a like a painting falls on him and then he like kicks the desk or whatever. You know, there's slapstick stuff in his stories for sure. But like he is a character.
Riders, a lot of that.
Yeah, Riders has a ton of comedy. It's pretty good too. But like with this character, they don't really like lean into that side of it. They just lean into like Jet is just kind of like a man baby. Which is I guess fine if you wanted to make that like I don't know enjoyable. But for the most part, one, I think most people don't want Jet to be that. But two, as that for the story, he's just kind of like flailing around, and the idea they kind of go for by the end is that you know he kind of gets like roped, like strong armed into, or not strong armed, he gets like his ego stroked to like help save people's lives or whatever. And then he kind of just leaves, and he decides, okay, I'm not gonna race Sonic or whatever. I'll let him have his nice little moment where he saved everybody. And it's like growth, I guess. You know, like at the like the idea just seems to be that they're just kind of around. They're just kind of being you know very loud. And then by the end, they kind of like help, and there's like a little bit of a gesture towards like, you know, maybe Jet kind of enjoyed helping, but fuck you, I'm leaving. So these characters feel like the most superfluous in the story. One, because they are, but two, just in terms of like they do come up with the don't they come up with the plan to like save the ship or whatever. But again, it doesn't feel like a story is being written around them. It just feels like Jet and his crew are just kind of like fucking around and just kind of being goofy. And then, you know, in the background, they're just sometimes going to be competent where they help us move the ship or whatever, and they help us save people. But Jet's not going to say he likes it, you know. And it's just like, okay, you know, that's it. That's all you did. You know, there's no story for them. There's no like they're not fun, and they don't really like fill a role in the narrative outside of just kind of helping at the end. And I think the idea they might be going for is just again like even maybe your rivals can be helpful and can save lives or whatever. But again, it's not really like a story for Jet. It's just that you know Jet's not that so evil that he would just let all these people die, right? It just doesn't. It just kind of feels like a nothing burger, I would say. You know.
I will also say right from the get-go, I just wasn't that enthusiastic about them because it just kind of seemed like they were falling into the same like, oh well in canon this is their chemistry, so we'll just do that and not really anything else. So you got Jet doing the thing with Sonic, and he's like, "Oh, I'm faster," and Sonic's like, "I'm faster." Whoa, it's like the game. And then you got Wave beating on Tails, like, you're a dummy, and my technology is like better than your stuff. He's like, oh, and then you got Storm being weird with Amy, and it's like, whoa, it's like zero gravity again. I'm just like, yeah, I just don't care.
Don't you understand? Well, no, that's exactly what it is, and it's like it's not like you can't use those to good effect, but if the story isn't going to be trying to have fun with those mechanics, which it's not, like the second we end up, like it really just felt like those interactions that happened at the beginning of this arc were just tokens, just so we can say, hey guys, you remember Sonic Zero Gravity? Because none of that shit comes into the rest of the story. Like Tails and Wave, Amy and Storm never interact for the rest of never. I don't even think they're in the same scene for the rest of the series or for the rest of this arc. So I'm just like, I don't even know why they did that other than just to drop that reference. And if you're going to go ahead and have fun with that reference, then let's try to make that like a part of the story. Let that be like proper setup for stuff that's flowing out through the rest of the story, having fun with that. But instead, it just turns into this weird hodgepodge about messing around with all the IDW OCs, and it just doesn't, and none of that shit works. So we just
move over a Sonic cast. We've got more important characters to write about.
Yeah, so
like this NPC who works behind a desk.
So I want to exactly. And the thing is, and I kind of want to say this here, I'm kind of glad that this arc came out because I've been getting frustrated with Stanley's work because I wanted to be able to rip into her as much as I can with Flynn because I'm trying to show, no, I don't have like a personal thing with Flynn. I just generally do not like how the series is written. I am totally up for giving accolades when they're warranted, but I need them to give me something to allow me to have that warranting. And now that Stanley has actually tried to put something out where I actually can say more than 5 words about it, I'm glad this exists. But this kind of shows her weaknesses. Oh, it really shows off her weaknesses that are similar to Flynn's, but also have one drastic weakness. Like with Flynn, it seems like she's just as allergic from being able to just pick one thing to focus on and just feels the need to just throw in a bunch of different shit possible, but honestly to even a worse extent. And just doesn't seem to have any idea about what the coherent idea was supposed to be like. I know, Waffles, you were trying to make a case that like this is meant to be the central theme, but I'm like, this is just kind of what the story ends on to try to make it seem like it's impactful because this shit is not relevant for 95% of the rest of the story. So I'm like, I can't buy this as being like an arc or the central point of the story when nothing else has anything to do with it.
Well, I think it's the center point. I just think it's not good at it, if that makes sense. Like it's clearly trying to land on it, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely wanted to land on it, but I'm like, it's kind of hard to land on it when it hasn't even been like a thing for the rest of the flight. So I'm just like, why are we trying to make this the ending point other than just you didn't have any other ideas for it? But the one thing I would say that Stanley has worse than Flynn, and Flynn still has this problem too, she's completely allergic for doing anything with the game characters. I think it's just because that they don't like writing with Sega's restrictions and they just have more creative freedom to do everything with their IDW OCs than doing something with the game cast. But the problem is this arc kind of shows why they shouldn't do anything with the game cast, because if this is the kind of shit that they want to do with this is the kind of shit that they do with mostly creative freedom, why should they be allowed to write with the characters that people actually give a shit about and actually can set some kind of standard?
Well, I would say that with Sonic and stuff, a lot of people might be actually like happy about how he's portrayed in issue 75 because one of the things he does is, the character things seem bleak. They seem like, we're not going to be, we have to give up the lives of these people, but for the other. But Sonic decides, no way, Jose, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to save as many people as possible. And what really struck out to me was how like just casual it was. But not casual in a sense of like, oh, of course Sonic's going to be that way, but just kind of like Sonic really feels like he's just kind of doing his thing this arc. He rarely feels like he's emotionally invested in anything. A lot of the scenes where like things are serious or whatever, he's just kind of like, let's help. It just kind of seems like he's very much just kind of like above it all, but not in a way that feels like endearing or cool or like striking. It just kind of he very much seems like he's on, especially in the last issue, where it's like, yeah, that's about what I would expect Sonic to say, but the story doesn't like frame him in a way. Like it's not like when things are crashing down. Maybe like Sonic is standing off in the distance, and then like they turn around and it's like, can't you see like, all the fire or whatever? Like, we're not going to be able to do it, and then maybe like it shows Sonic and he's standing in front of the fire and then he just like jumps in, like just anything cool. Like that gives him like the sense of like purpose, or like, I don't know, like maybe he's like, they don't know where he is. He's like doing stuff or whatever. And then it's like, oh, it's hopeless. Like we don't even know where Sonic is. And then just like a blue blur flies by and, rides off. And then like, everyone's just like, you know what? No, let's, we can keep running, even as we're falling through, the sky or whatever. Sonic just doesn't have any of the gravitas you would want to give him for what effectively is a very heroic and like really cool thing he does, which is just the simple idea of he's just like, no, I'm not going to give into this idea of like, we have to sacrifice someone or the other. I'm just going to save everybody because of course I'm going to save everybody. But it's just not presented in a way that's cool, or like in a way that feels like climactic, or like, oh my gosh, Sonic's here, like there's always hope. He just doesn't.
Because it's for a couple of reasons. One, the saving, as much as like, yeah, no, Sonic finally gets to be a hero and actually like do something to like be a part of the story proper. It's just kind of token because it's not like an idea of like something building on what he's been trying to do in the story or trying to do with the premise, or something about him. It's just like, okay, we get thing done, let's just fucking do it. Like, this is the core way you can kind of tell that Sonic is not isn't really the protagonist in this goddamn story, because him saving this isn't meant to be like some climax for everything that's been going through this entire story. He literally could have just showed up in issue 75 and fuck off. Literally everything else, show up 75 and nothing would change, because he's just kind of just going through the motions of what you would expect, not just Sonic, but any action protagonist with super speed would do this. Yeah. This isn't too dissimilar from what Quicksilver would end up doing in the X-Men movies.
Right, where it's just like, yeah, of course you'd use your speed to grab people,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is, and honestly, I feel like this would have been a lot better. I feel like a more climactic way to deal with this character if this was actually meant to be a story and we were constantly building up on him getting to this point, but more specifically about what this conflict is meant to represent to him to a certain extent. Like,
right, because Sonic's most emotional investment is something's fishy here, and that's it. Yeah, go ahead.
He actually gets more emotionally invested than that when it gets to Clutch. So one of the reasons why I actually would be up for having this like as a silly debate of who is the worst character in IDW, and I don't know if I would say Sonic, but I definitely do think he should be in the running. And one of the reasons why, and Waffles, feel free to push back on me about this, it shows up here where we end up establishing like, yeah, Clutch is the one doing all this evil shit. He's the one who's constantly doing all these problems. We need to figure out what he's officially the bad guy. Sonic wants to try taking him down, but then when Eggman ends up going full robot mode, it's like, yeah, no, I'm going to take him down. Sonic goes, that's not part of the deal. We can't just let anything bad happen to this guy. I'm like, why are we trying to give him why are we doing this? I don't need him to like be nonchalant about people dying, but I don't need stories that need to focus on the idea that he should give a shit about these people, about his villain's well-being. Like, why do we need this?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where it's sort of because they like to do this a lot with Sonic, is they kind of like, one of the reasons characters are cool is that they don't either know they're cool or they just do things, right? They let their actions speak for them. And so what could have been very cool is if Eggman, like, was trying to kill Clutch or whatever, and Sonic just saves him. And then Clutch is like, what the heck? You tried to save me? And then Sonic just like tosses him, because he saved him. Like, I don't care now, And it's just like, that just shows through Sonic's actions that he just wasn't willing to let this guy get hurt, right? And that's cool. That's just a character taking actions based on how they feel. But like, when you have these characters, like they do this with Sonic a lot for, just anyone who's writing him in these comics, they just really want him to like explain it, right? And when you explain it, that means, there's a thought process going on. There's like these, there's more faculties going into it. And that's just less cool to me. Obviously, you can think things through or whatever. And that can be really cool in its own right. But one of the appeals people like about Sonic is just that he just does things, And so if he just decided to save Clutch and he wasn't like, well, Clutch, all life is sacred or whatever, that would be really cool. It just means that Sonic in that moment, he's like, you know what, I'm going to save Clutch. There you go. And there you go. That would just be it. But instead, he's like, dude, like, no, you can't like hurt this guy. Like, this is not the deal, And instead, it just would have been cool if he just saved him. and then just toss Clutch to the side, throw him on the ground. I'm done with you now. I saved your life, but I'm not going to save you or out, however it works. Right. I'm not gonna, I don't care that like your butt gets hurt when I throw you on the ground or like you, I don't know, break a shoulder. And that would be cool. By the way, Clutch is like holding back a robot. That's crazy. Again, the paneling is not doing him any favors because that is kind of badass if, it looked good or it made any sense.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I just, Sonic is just very much going through the motions in this arc. And it's just very unfortunate because for most of this storyline, I just, it's just like, all right, Sonic's doing his thing. But it really did stand out to me in this one because he was actually doing things that could be really cool. And it just felt so flat and just passive. So, yeah.
Because part of it, like I said before, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything towards Sonic. Like, let me have a little bit of a diatribe because this is just the first example that came to my head. So, in the newest season of Doctor Who, one of the first episodes is about how the Doctor and Ruby ends up going to a ship filled with not only a bunch of babies who are running the goddamn place, but also there's literally a giant monster in the basement that's looking to just try to terrify them. They're trying to figure out what it is. One thing leads to another, and we end up finding out that the ship itself created the monster in order to try to entertain the children. And when we end up getting to the point that the monster is about to get thrown out into space, the Doctor ends up having a moment where he's meant to be paralleling himself to the monster in the first place, because like himself, the monster is also the last of its kind, and he's just like, no, I don't want this monster to die. I don't want this monster to die. And as hokey as that might be, him going through the process of getting into the airlock, trying to find a way to seal it off so the monster can end up staying safe and not just die in the middle of space, it's still doing what you'd expect the protagonist to do to try to save people, but it at least has that thematic connection to who he is as a character that it ends up working to give an idea about who he is, to not only give an idea about who he is, but what this fight is meant to represent to him as a character. Sonic going through and just trying to save a bunch of these people is like, yeah, no, it's what you expect for Sonic to go through, but who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? It's what you'd expect any protagonist in that situation to do. What is this meant to represent to Sonic? What is this meant to represent to him as a character? And it's nothing. It's not like he's choosing to save these people over like fighting a revenge match with Scourge or some shit where he was like desperately looking to do that in the first place and he was overcoming that. There's nothing substance. There's nothing. Not only is there no cool aesthetic to him actually going around trying to save people, it's just like, yes, what you'd expect. He just kind of there's nothing about him doing that's meant to say anything other than just, yeah, he's a hero who saves people. It's like, good for him. Why should I care? Like, what is this? What am I supposed to get out of this other than that? And that's consistently the problem that we have with how really all the characters are written in the series, but especially with Sonic. If we're not doing the sanctimonious, he has to live by his principles, even if it puts a bunch of other people in risk, which is stupid to do, which is so stupid to do in the series that basically ends up showing why this is a dumb idea to do. We either get stuff like that, where it just ends up making the character look dumber, or we end up getting situations like this, where it just comes off hollow at best and just kind of a throwaway scene at worst. And it's like, why are we going through this stuff,
Yeah, but hey, no, I think that kind of. Was there anything else to talk about, or I think.
This comic made me say the one thing I never thought I'd actually say. I would have been fine if Tails died during the crash.
Died?
Wait, that's kind of random. You need to explain.
Yeah, no, I'm going to explain. So when Sonic just comes up with a plan to go like, okay, let's go in here and try to save as many people out before the ship ends up crashing into Restoration HQ. Bell and Tails end up going into the mechanic shop, and the whole thing is like, Bell's like, no, I have to go in here because I need to save someone who's not going to be able to save themselves. It's like, who are you talking about? And it's the Motobug that they said a while ago, and they're going like, Bell, you've been working on this shit for weeks. We're not gonna be like, it's time to go. It's like, no, if we move him, then his memories might end up getting erased. Spoilers, that's not how memory works. That's not how how storage for computers work. And their whole thing is like, no, I have to find a way to try to save them to some degree. They're like, all right, we will stay here. Even though we're like 5 minutes from getting blown to fucking bits, we're going to stay here and help you try to put this thing together as quickly as possible. I'm like, I would be okay if these two died here. I would be okay if these three just died here. I'm just like, for Tails especially, it's a mercy killing.
Does the Moto book even have a name?
He's Motobud.
Yeah, Motobud, yeah.
Okay.
Don't act like that's not cute, Derp.
It's one letter. It's one.
Indeed. That's what makes it adorable. No, they got to save Motobud. I mean, yeah, obviously, again, what they're going for with this is like, we look out for each other, right? You know, it's the people and the robots. But it's just very funny for like Belle, who's kind of been like very irrelevant for this whole story. I literally forgot that she has actually been here the whole time because she gets captured. She's like, you know, with them in the
I literally didn't bring her up because she doesn't matter until this.
Yeah, so it's just very funny that she gets like this last minute like kind of like emotional scene they're trying to go for, you know? Of like, I gotta protect this thing.
Evan Stanley has fucking ADHD.
No, it's
just weird too because they didn't build any of this up, so it's just weird.
Yeah,
it just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, no, this brings us something I wanted to talk about in particular. So about a year or two ago, we ended up doing a video talking about urban warfare, and the whole thing like with the thumbnail and stuff is that we were joking about like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like this is coming off like the comic is about to die and shit. And the thing is, as clearly that was proven to be wrong, I stand by coming to that conclusion because I came to that conclusion because like the story itself was so jumbled and so packed with so many different ideas that did not need to be there to any degree. I only had two conclusions to draw from that. Either one, she was looking to try to rush in and put as many things in there as possible because she was just looking, because the comp was wrapping up, but they just needed to put stuff in there so they could, so she could get all of her ideas out before the comic ends up dying. Or two, she has no idea how fucking pacing works, and she just thinks if you just put as much shit to a story as possible, that's what makes it good. I went with the former because the former I could at least somewhat respect that creative decision. The latter is honestly just an insult because that just tells me that she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing. And now that I've seen this arc, I can absolutely say it's the fucking latter that is just cramming in so much shit. Like, why do we need this here? Like, why did we need to we literally could have just established that she needs to run in here real quick, pick up this box, and get the fuck out. We did not need to establish this whole scene about trying to like, oh, we need to put this thing together real quick because we just need to establish more stakes in the last 5 seconds. A literal giant fucking flying bomb is about to come down and crash onto this goddamn place. We don't need to raise the more. We don't need to add some more personal flair here, especially because it doesn't even amount to much.
Well, and again, you can't get invested in it because again, this is where it's like there's no story, right? Because the whole idea is, you know, like we're in it together. We're, you know, the restoration, and again, like it also matters for the monkey guy, right? Because originally he was kind of against Belle, or because she was kind of a nuisance, right? And so like,
who's this guy?
He's the grease monkey guy who just like runs the shop.
That's all we need to know. That's all.
Yeah, I'm like, did I miss this?
Yeah, no, he's been around. But yeah, it's like, okay, so, you know, like he's willing to like protect her and help her and stuff. It's like, oh, that could be nice. But it's like, there's no stakes to like, oh, are they going to fix it in time? Because I don't know what it takes to fix Motobud. And also, there's nothing about like Tails' like ability to fix things that has been like tested throughout this arc of like, oh, maybe he hasn't been able to build something fast enough, or maybe he's been really on top of it, right? Or, you know, something like that. Or like, there's no reason of like, oh, Tails ends up being here because of this or that. It's just they happen to be here and they go, will the smart people be able to fix it in time? I literally don't know. I don't know what you would do to fix it, you know? So it's just like, of course they're going to fix it. There's no stakes. There's no situation of like, well, if Batman misses a punch, he could get frozen by Mr. Freeze because Mr. Freeze has a freeze gun, right? There's just nothing. There's nothing to ground myself in this scene. So therefore, it just feels so, that's why it feels so jarring. Because it's like, why is Tails and Belle getting a scene about fixing Motobud? There's nothing to ground myself in. It's just gonna happen. Of course it's gonna happen. Of course he's gonna fix it. There's no other thing that could happen.
Well, I don't know about you, Waffles, but you know, I believe Tails could do it because, you know, in Lost World, he could build a microwave with dishwasher detergent.
Oh no, that's the problem. Of course he can do it. So who cares? But it's not. But it's not. Of course he can. And I know you're making a joke. It's not like, of course he can do it because like we've built up a story about how Tails is so cool and we want to root for him. Of like again, like when Luffy shows up, it's like, oh, Luffy's got this guy. Like we're good now. Like you're not feeling like when Tails shows up, like, oh man, Tails, the guy who's been doing all this cool stuff in this arc, he's gonna fix it, Belt. Don't you even worry. You're just like, I guess he'll fix it. Why wouldn't he? You know. Oh boy. Oh yeah. Is there anything else?
No. Just exactly, because like here's the thing. We're not like, of course, these characters are always going to end up succeeding to a certain extent. Even if they end up getting like a loss for a second, of course they're going to win. And when you try setting the stakes of they either defeat this or they either succeed or they end up dying, of course they're going to end up succeeding. They're not going to kill off. They're not going to kill off Tails, obviously. But the whole goal should be, like you're saying, we need to understand the whole appeal of these kind of stories should not be if they're going to get out of it or not, or if they're going to succeed or not. It's how. What specifically do they need to do, or how they need to grow as a person in order to be able to achieve this. So
that takes too much effort. So Ex Machina, boom, done.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's just like, yeah, again, I keep saying it, and it's a broken record. There's no story. Yeah. It's not a story. It's just a thing that happens. And again, I think for a lot of people, they might come away and be like when you put it in a vacuum, you say, wow, Tails was able to fix an Eggman tech and make it like fly and like give it super speed in under a minute. Wow, what a great W for Tails. And it's like, okay, that would be if there was a story. But no, it has as much weight as if I had writ that down on a notepad and said, this is a thing Tails has done. You go, wow, he did that. That's pretty cool. And then you look at it and you go, oh, that's exactly how it feels when you read it. It is actually cool in your head if you were to just read the description of what happens and go, wow, that was probably fucking awesome, you know? And then you look at it and you go, oh, he just like does it. All right, well, you know, the end. But yeah.
Yeah.
But hey, is there anything else?
Oh yeah, we're going to shift into another Chaos Emerald hunt, because apparently after the issue right before this arc where, you know, they deal with Salamander and get the Chaos Emerald. Apparently,
It got stolen, right?
We don't know. All we know is that they came home, the door was open, and the Chaos Emerald was gone.
Yeah, now it's somewhere.
Whoa.
So, you know, hopefully.
Intriguing.
And, by the way, I need to point out, so like you hear that, right? It's like, oh, it's been taken, right? In Archie, if a character had like a Chaos Emerald, that like meant something, because one Chaos Emerald could, you know, do stuff. It gave you like ultimate power if you could like manipulate it or whatever. If it broke apart, it could like create a zone. Chaos Emeralds just on their own, like one, could do a lot. This is like the universe. They're only useful if you have 7. So like this, it's not even scary of like, oh my gosh, like, someone has a Chaos Emerald. It's like, yeah, okay, who cares?
Like it would be fun if they just decided to have. It would be fun if they had fun and they decided like, oh, if a Sonic character has an emerald, they can do chaos powers now. Like,
yeah, just anything.
Bare minimum.
Yeah, but now it's just like, oh no, it's not here. Okay, like, well, grab the fucking radar. That's it.
It's like, I'm not asking for time travel. I'm just like Shadow's moveset, but on any character, like bare minimum, just let them do stuff with it. It just seems right. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's just a very funny cliffhanger, because it's like, oh no, the Chaos Emerald's gone. It's like, obviously you could be interested in like the location. I think the location is kind of neat. So, you know, maybe it's somewhere interesting or whatever. Like it's kind of like these weird ruins. It's clearly on like some sort of pedestal. So it's like, okay, I don't know. And there's like maybe those are eyes back there, right? So it's like we could be doing, and it also has kind of like a cage design there. But it's like, I don't know, who cares?
I have no, like, my thing is, I have no reason to believe that this story is going to be anything other than like a 2 out of 10 at best, because we just went through all this other shit and everything was like half baked and fully thought out. So I have no reason to believe that, this is going to be the arc where they're actually going to fucking cook.
Like, it is mildly intriguing, but I just have like no faith. I just have no faith. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I would say that's like every arc in IDW that I come into. I'm like, well, this could be good, and then it's not.
Like, I remember we read the like Urban Warfare arc, and the issue ended or something like with like a echidna totem thing. Rune Chad, and she passed it on to Amy, and she's like, "Go tell Knuckles, like, thank you, whatever, from me," and and then Knuckles gets the totem. He places it down on some stupid like trap, and it's like there, all finished, and that was it. And I'm like, no lore, no story. Like you set that up just for it to be a little set piece, I guess. Like, I hope this is interesting. I hope they do cool stuff with it. I hope I feel anything other than apathy.
I'm just gonna go ahead and put out a prediction. It's going to be really stupid, really shit, half thought out, and gonna be really complicated. I'm gonna go.
I say this like every other call we have about this, but like I am a Sonic fan. I don't go into these things like looking to hate them. Like I was kind of excited when I first saw like the Phantom Rider design. I'm like, oh, this is neat. I wonder what they're doing with it. I like Sonic Riders, and then with each like every other preview reveal of like the next issue, I just felt less and less, and then it just stopped becoming about Sonic altogether, and it just
no, I completely agree. Like you, like I know I've gotten a reputation for being a Flynn hater and an IDW Sonic hater. I'm not. I do go in with the hope of going, wow, that was actually a good story. Please hit me with something. But I'm just like, I have to accept reality that it's not. Like if you've gone 75 for 75 of shit stories, like why should I believe that 76 is going to be the point where you finally start turning everything around when nothing else has changed? And I don't know a natural place to put this. This is the best place to put it, because it's not just Flynn and Stanley. It also just feels like the editors are just kind of, if not asleep, dead. And they're just like, no one's going in to check on to see like if they're going in to check to see if they're allowed to actually review this shit. Because even ignoring like the weird logical inconsistencies that we brought up, anyone who's actually paying attention should have told you, I don't care if this is 8 or 9 issue arc. You are not Oda. You do not need to be having this much shit in one story, especially when most of it doesn't have anything to do with each other. The only reason to I get that you want to make this a writer's arc, but the only reason to make this a writer's arc is to include these 3, because the Extreme Gear Racing stuff does not matter in the story overall. So you might as well just go ahead and get rid of it. So, and once you get rid of that, you don't need this. You don't need the Babylon Rogues, but that also means that you can get rid of the Common Rider stuff, which
probably could have been a Team Sonic Racing like arc or something.
Honestly, yeah, it easily could have just been that. It would have made more sense than trying to make it a writer stuff, because that adds less to what's going. That just adds more complexity to the story that doesn't benefit anything. So I'm just. If the story can become good, I will be the first person to go, yes, I will defend it. This is actually a good story, but I need them to give me something to make me want to be able to say, to give me the reason to say that this is good. Otherwise, I'm just going to call balls and strikes as I see them. I'm not going to just go ahead and just say it's good just so I can pretend I'm being even-handed or neutral.
We need Daniel Barnes back, man.
I was gonna say, before we wrap up the year, I don't know if Derp would be interested. We should all read the Mimic story from the annual, and then let me talk about it, because it's really good. It's like the best IDW story ever. It's incredible. And
I cannot tell if you're being sincere.
I can confirm he's being sincere right now.
It is. Have you read it, Derp?
I have not.
Please read it so I can gush about it to you, because I want to give the story its due.
Are you being for real?
He's being for real. Honestly, we're gonna be pretty.
I'll tell you, I have real reasons.
Yeah, he does. Honestly,
well, consider me intrigued.
Let's talk about that.
I'm hoping this is almost an elaborate bit right now.
It's not. I can guarantee you right now. He's being 100% sincere right now.
It'll be the funniest punchline that you got me to believe for half a second that maybe they produced something good.
Well, you know what? I guess we'll find out, because I would like to do one last podcast about it maybe this year if you all.
2. We're actually going to end up doing 2, but we can talk about that more after the call. But
we can wrap up if you'd like.
Yeah, we go ahead and just wrap up here. Thank you guys. Oh, actually, any other final thoughts about the series?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, this cover is incredible and it makes me sad. So.
Yeah. Stanley, thank you for putting out something that allows me to actually rip into your shit for something and actually giving something with meat in order to try to rip into. Granted, it's burnt charcoal that's made from like 3 different kinds of made from fish, pork, and chicken, and those 3 should not be combined together. So I don't even know why you did that. But I respect that you at least gave me something to actually chew into. So thanks. But yeah, no. But on the plus side, we get Flynn back next time. That should honestly be good, right?
How long is he going to be following the story? Like, is he just kind of setting things up again and passing it off, or is he going to be the main writer for a while?
I don't know. All I've seen is the previews of the next 2 issues, and he's just the writer on the next 2 issues. I don't know how. Maybe.
Right, well, I guess we'll see, Flynn.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, no. Those are my last thoughts. This is a fucking train wreck. Actually, you know what? I'll end on this one thing. This is probably going to end up coming up later, but I just want to say this here. I'm in the group of Sonic fans that just kind of goes, we don't need to have these characters in the games ever. Not because I don't think that the Sonic cast should ever grow. I think there needs to be a little bit more focus on who the quote unquote main cast is. But after that, yeah, add as many characters as you want. The problem I have is none of these characters do anything to actually benefit or grow the story to any degree, because most of them are either already half thought out in their own premises outright, and I don't see how they would either be fun, not only as their own game mechanics, I don't really that actually would build onto what we already have in this story in the first place. Like, you could talk about, we can give like Tangle Spider-Man moves. I'm like, they barely can get Tails to work as a flyer. Why the fuck is she going to become Spider-Man for these games? But even putting that to the side, they don't have good chemistry with any of the game characters, because the other funny part is, besides Amy, they don't interact with anyone. They don't really interact with anyone from the game cast. So I'm just like,
yeah, they're all stuck in their own cliques.
Own little cliques, own little bubbles, and they don't do anything to like show how they would benefit from interacting with any of the other characters. So and at this point, I don't know if there's anything you can really do to fix them, because they like with Surge and Kit, like with Lanolin, like with all of them, they don't have enough about their characters to worth really fixing to bring into the Gamecast proper, and I don't really think they should. So if I just want to go and put my vote out there of, I don't care how cute people think these designs are. They add nothing to the story, nothing to the cast, and really should just be kept to IDW over anything else. Or to really make this hurt, I would prefer the Freedom Fighters to get brought into the games before this, and I don't want the Freedom Fighters in the games.
Yeah, you really don't like what's his name, Boomer? That dude, the walrus.
Honestly, Rotor's probably the one. Not character-wise, but just design-wise, I actually would make the best. I actually feel like I can make the best case for him. He has so little character that wouldn't be worth it, but I'm like, I can make a case for it for adding another beefy guy, because besides Vector and Big, we don't really. Everyone else is just like these small 3-foot-tall twings. So I'm like, no, let's get another big guy in the cast. But I actually could make a case for Rotor. My biggest hindrance would probably be closer like Antoine or Sally, just because of how they're set up. But
yay, Bunny, the only one we all probably want together.
I was gonna say, I'd say Bunny fits pretty well.
Yeah.
Bunny, I would actually push for first over the other 4. But yeah, no, I'm saying, like, my point is, I'm not wild about them being there, but I'm like, I'd rather see those 5 than I'd rather see any of these other rather see any of these other IDW OCs.
Makes sense. So
yeah.
All right.
Well, yeah.
There we go.
All right. Thank you guys. Not only thank all of you for showing up today to listen to us talk about this mess of an arc, but thank you both, Waffles and Derp, for showing up to this. You can go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
Derp.
You can find me at Twitter at 2dufida and YouTube. I have nothing to promote, so if you're sad My Hero Academia is ending, there's an anime called Shy. It's pretty good. Go watch that. Nobody's talking about it because the title is not easy to find on its own, but that's a fun little superhero anime about like a girl lead, and it's really cute, but it has some like dark imagery and stuff, and season 2 just becomes bigger and better. Go watch that. Anime recommendation time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got it on the screen for you so you know where to look. Waffles?
Yeah, me and Waffles. You can find me at Ian Waffles on my YouTube channel. I made a video about Bochi the Rock recently. It's a video I'm really proud of, so you can definitely check that out and watch that anime. Otherwise, you can always find me at Low Arts channel, where we're still making Archie Sonic videos. We recently did an Archie Mega Man video. So, if you heard about that, definitely check that out, because it's a very underrated piece of not only a Flynn's work, but just a comic in general. So definitely check it out. So, hey, thanks for having me as always.
All right, thank you. And you guys can find me on Lavi Array on practically everything. Tumblr, Twitter, Blue Sky. Just take a look for Lavi Array and you'll find me. All right. But yeah, thank you guys so much. And we will see you next time, either for the annual or possibly for the movie. All right.
All right. Peace.
All right.
See
peace.
ya.